Hey, great. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Springer. I'm a certified surgical technologist at Keck Medical Center in USC in Los Angeles, California. I'm not a developer. You're going to be hearing from a layman's perspective here of how glass can be best utilized in my field, which is the operating room. You can see here that's me. That's my family. And this is the institution or the hospital that I work with, Keck Medical Center of USC. The Keck Medical Center of USC is composed of like two hospitals, the 401 licensed bed Keck Hospital of USC, and then the 60 bed USC Norris Cancer Center. Both of them are teaching general medical and surgical facility in Los Angeles, California area. Our hospital is one of the nationally ranked in 4 and high performing in 7 adult specialties. One of the Keck Hospital of USC's main core values is, the Keck Medical Center of USC is committed of becoming a recognized top-tier academic medical center, delivering personalized, compassionate, and innovative care through collegial collaboration. This is me at work. This is post-glass. I don't have my glass yet. And this is my family at work inside the OR. And this is my working environment. Take a good picture of it. So by definition I got from Wikipedia, it says that operating room are spacious, easy to clean, and well lit. In reality, the modern operating room is cluttered with multiple specialized medical and surgical equipment, furniture, instruments, and supplies. Not to mention doctors, residents, medical students, sales reps. It's a whole lot. It gets chaotic like just in an instant. Well, historically, it is called the operating theater, which still carries relevance towards today as a dramaturgical metaphor that adds another layer of understanding about the reality and setting of the modern operating room, where an operation is an orchestral performance of equipment, device, gadgetry, and sometimes they even call it toys. As healthcare becomes more and more technology dependent. So here's the problem statement, the good and the bad. Medical and surgical technology. Advancement in medical equipment and surgical technology has led to a significant improvement in surgical intervention and patient outcome. New medical equipment, instruments, surgical supplies, and methods of intervention are introduced, integrated, and adapted by clinicians to cope up with the changing needs in providing the best surgical care. However, failure in equipment and technology are implicated in surgical errors and adverse event. About 15 errors occur during a typical operation, and 24% of these errors are accounted to equipment and surgical technology failure. Among these errors, lack of availability of needed equipment accounted for 37%. Problems with equipment, configuration, and setting occurred in 24% of incidents, and device malfunctioning was responsible for 33% of cases reported. Now, I purposely highlighted the equipment configuration and settings, not just because it's the highest number, but that's what you call user error. So this is data taken from the systematic review of quantitative studies that was published on September of 2003, titled Surgical Technology and Operating Room Safety Failures. By the way, let me go back to the problem statement. So I kind of presented two factors here. One is the medical and surgical technology, which is talking about the device, and then the other one is the peri-operative care, which involves the actual personnel, the RNs, the surgical tech. Here it says that it's a unique environment. The peri-operative arena is a unique environment that includes many challenging variables: complex clinical care performed by teams, high-cost, sophisticated technology, and a large array of supplies, instruments, and implants that are difficult to manage. This variable creates an environment of massive complexity and, unfortunately, are a source of significant percentage of safety-related adverse event. Bottom line is personal incompetency can result into a surgeon's burden. For decades, the perioperative fundamental functions haven't changed, that most of it had become obsolete, wasteful, impractical, and unsafe. With the inherent complexity of the perioperative environment combined with utilization of intricate, state-of-the-art, not to mention expensive medical surgical equipment and technology, the experience can become overwhelming and strenuous for the OR personnel, who are the backbone of the surgical team, the arm and the leg of the surgeons or the doctors, in and around the sterile field, and that despite of it all, it's also expected to deliver a safe and a quality patient care in a fast-paced, controlled environment. So I asked one of my colleagues to demonstrate this just for picture taking, how we carry the load in the OR. It's not really a real picture, it's just Photoshop. Otherwise, that thing weighs like 500 or like 700 pounds. In this age of robotic surgery, revolution in modern medicine, and advancement in medical and surgical technology, peri-operative personal competency has been challenged, demanded, and innovation is now needed. Opportunity abounds for technology and informatic-based competency improvement in the peri-operative care arena. What better way to achieve competency than to adapt technology itself and its many developed and yet to be developed contemporary hardware, like Google Glass, and yet to be developed methods or application that will enhance and elevate our personal competence. So saying here, I want to just add that competency refers to the potential ability and or capability to function in a given situation. Competency focuses on one's actual performance in a situation. This means that competence is required before one can expect to achieve competency. Taming the beast. So our hospital just recently got the new Da Vinci Xi, and it comes with this thick of a user manual, about 1,000 pages. Yeah, doctors, the surgeon have the first-hand experience or training to it, but when they brought it in, none of us were like just, oh, what is this? So none of us were introduced, were even educated to proper caring of the equipment. We do like in service, but it would be just like a slight, 10-minute, that's it. So what is the impact of wearable technology in healthcare? Recently, the move towards ubiquitous computing had led to development of a new technology category, which is wearable technology. Most of this device are so-called smart device or devices, combining computer and connectivity capability. Wearable technology like the Google Glass isn't just a set of neat gadget. It's a technology that is making its way from something that we hold in our hands to something we can wear hands-free to enhance our lives. So it makes perfect sense that healthcare is one industry that see a lot of benefits with wearable technology. However, successful adaptation of any technology like the Da Vinci Xi that was just introduced to our facility, especially in a clinical environment. Providing resources for training of all affected clinicians is critical. Successful training in the perioperative environment is especially challenging since our hours available are typically limited and costly. In an absence of informatics and technology-based generic process structure, like developing a web-based application for the handheld and wearable technology that can be utilized as an educational resource, equipping everyone with real-time access to data and information, the organization have to train, retrain, and reinvent the wheel again and again, which could result in time and cost escalation. So why train a few if we can equip everyone? So I come up with this project called the OR Glass. Augmenting OR personal competency. And that's me. One of my surgical cups says, "Keep calm, I'm scrubbed with glass." Let me just give you a little history of like how I got involved with Google Glass, or how I got the device. We already come up with I was working on something else, similar, the same concept, but using a different method that I introduced to the hospital. And then when Google Glass come out to the market, I sent it to Google for hoping that I can be invited to the Explorer program. And I guess they see the potential, or the interest of that particular project that we piloted in our hospital, that they invited me to the Explorer program. So right after I get my invite, I talked to my wife. I said, "Can I cash in my Christmas, birthday, and whatever gift just to get $1,500 for the glass?" And she agreed to it. So that's how I got it. And again, the amount, it's not really, the opportunity to be the first it's priceless. So it doesn't really compare to how much you pay for it. So what is OR Glass? It is a concept innovative project that is aimed towards augmenting perioperative personnel competency through real-time education and access to information by using wearable technology, in this case, Google Glass. So we have this, I'm sorry about it's not a high-resolution image, but we have this Viking 3D endoscope system in our facility. And this is how we get instruction how to use it. Just write it down on a piece of paper and stick it in there. We have this ultra-modern, this is the stapling device. And this is how we come up to give other technicians instruction how to use it. Just cut the piece of the box and stick it in the wall. We have a lot of this booby machines that comes with this. And but not the least, the Da Vinci robots that comes with this. It's 1.7 million equipment, but that's all they can come up with, cheat sheets hanging on the side of the cart. Despite the lack of available resources, comprehensive training, in-depth knowledge to be competent in setting up, handling, and operating this equipment and devices, we have learned to adapt and come up with our own methods, like writing notes and taking pictures, using our smartphones, of the step-by-step process in putting together a device, setting up for a procedure, and even the actual manifestation and use of a tool and an equipment. OR Glass is not an EHR or EMR. It's not an HIT, CIT, PACS. I don't even know those terms. I just put them in their application for glass. It is a concept idea that focuses on secure, safe, and meaningful use that would justify the investment in adopting wearable technology, Google Glass in healthcare, by utilizing it in a multidisciplinary, so not just doctors. It would be used for residents, surgical tech, or maybe even housekeeping can use them, and a multi-device application. So the focus of OR glass, I mean, the OR glass is not just for actually the glass. It's multi-applications. We're trying to I'm trying to come up with ideas of how to incorporate it for your handheld devices like your smartphone. It is a step that will revolutionize how the perioperative personnel perform into the next level. So OR glass application, one of it is the real-time hands-free access to information. Here you can see a sample of a picture of you're doing a septoplasty, an endoscopic septoplasty. You can just say, this is just out of the box capability of Google Glass, where you can just say Google septoplasty and it would give you a definition. Or on the other picture over there on your right side, you can have pictures of the actual procedure that you're about to be doing. And in this sample right here, let me play you a video. Sorry, there's no audio. Doing a robotic, transoral robotic surgery. You can have a definition of what is a transoral robotic surgery. As you're looking at the screen, so you're asking yourself, what is this anatomy I'm looking at? You can just pull out an anatomy of the mouth, the oral anatomy. So it gives that much needed knowledge that the surgical technology can use in real time. Video, it can be, another application is video streaming between device and glass. Here's another one another concept. Before I go farther, I just want to let you guys know that these are all just concept ideas. They are not working application yet. If it's gonna play. So here's an example of doing a craniotomy wherein we don't have a field of view of the actual procedure because the doctor is under the microscope. So I can just say, okay, glass, pair with. And I'm going to be pairing with the microscope video system. It's like pairing your phone to your Bluetooth. And once it's paired, then I will have the video image captured in the microscope. Now I can turn my head, do something else, and even turn my back, and I'm still aware what's going on behind me. So Dr. Grossman, actually, when he sees this, he said, oh, wow, this is cool. It's going to make you hyper-aware. Think about your RNs too, like walking out of the room, trying to get something. They still have that view of like, what's going on inside the OR, even though they're outside of the room. And then it can also be used as a two-way communication between glass to glass. Now, I don't really see a complication here with HIPAA compliance, because although you're seeing here a video of me capturing the actual procedure, but when it becomes an application, you're not really capturing a video. The actual procedure, you're actually just getting that information on your glass. And augmented access to equipment and device user manual instructions with hands-free and gesture control. Now, these guys already did something with gesture control with glass. Just using his hands to like take some pictures and then scroll to the picture that he has taken prior. And here's what I come up with. So I have my equipment. Press setup. And then go for the actual procedure that you're going to be doing. Press on that one. And you're going to have a picture, step-by-step process on how to use the equipment. And here's another thing. It's for surgical supplies.
Okay, Glass, imagine this.
You have a surgical supply that you haven't seen before. You can just
Okay,
take a
Glass.
picture of it to identify it. You're going to have the information of what device or what supply is it. So you're going to have access to description, instructions, and warnings for like contraindication. For the RNs, it's important, the description, like the drug component and what is it used for. You have the expiration date, the manufacturing date. And for us, this particular device need to be set up special way, so you have that video demo on like how to handle it and put it all together. So this is one of the many possible applications, Google Glass in the operating room. And augmented reality is already here. This is one of the company that developed a augmented layer. They actually have an application for smartphones or the handhelds, as well as for Google Glass.
In 2009, we showed you how reality could be augmented with a smartphone. Now, we can show you how reality can be augmented with Google Glass. Here's how it works. Just say,
Okay, Glass, scan this.
And in just a matter of seconds, you're experiencing augmented reality in a true heads-up fashion, right on your Google Glass. In this real estate example, you can tap to view more about a home for sale or rent. Or just swipe to browse through each listing in your area. With Layer for Glass, you can discover more about the world around you, like seeing movie trailers play right on the poster.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard our non-stop service from New York to London.
You can use Glass to view any campaign published on the Layer platform, like interactive magazines with videos that play right on the page. You can view any content available on Layer with Google Glass, including incredible 360-degree panoramic experiences. Visit layer.com/glass to download.
I just promoted a product for them. Now, so to demonstrate that, I have this image right here. I actually have the image here too. I don't have my glass with me. I do have it, but the connection, problem that everybody's been experiencing, I just don't want to go through that. So let me just simplify that real quick. I'm going to use my smartphone, but it works exactly the same if you're going to use it through the glass. Let me just connect my iPhone here real quick. So again, the same image. I'm just going to go ahead, put it somewhere. Pop it. Taking a long time. You see that's floating on the image itself. It's actually an interactive image. You can, for example, I need to learn how to set up the top monitor over there. I'm just going to go ahead and press that. Load up. Okay, now you're going to have an information on like how to set it up, step-by-step process with picture. And the neat thing about it is like, well, if I'm using it in my iPhone, go back there. I can actually capture the same image and keep it there. Now I can, if there's any problem with the equipment, I can just go straight to email it to technical support. So yeah, you can just send the email right away, or even just call technical support straight from your phone. All right, so that's the demonstration for augmented reality in glass. Let me plug this one back into my. On. It's not going back to the projector. Okay, so integration to Cerner. Cost capture, scanning supplies needed and will be used for surgery as you open it and sync it to Cerner. Just accurately and efficiently charge the patient. That's one of the application of glass that I think of can be integrated to Cerner. As you open it, just say, take a picture, capture this, capture this, capture this. So device and equipment manufacturers should be involved in developing this concept application for their products that will promote safety and equipment sustainability. Hospitals should demand, adopt, and implement this innovative approach that would enhance personal competency to protect their investment, because obviously this equipment does cost a lot, but more importantly, the employees and the patient well-being. So are you qualified? That's why we need glass. HIPAA, I'm not going to touch a lot about HIPAA, just a little bit here. HIPAA compliance, the perceived use of this application does not involve direct patient care. And there will be an application initiation protocol in place that would subject the device to its intended use only. So you can, like a badge, employee badge, you can scan it just to activate the actual application. So it would be monitored who's using what and what is it for. Technology has revolutionized the world of surgery and transformed how surgical intervention are performed and perfected to be an effective, efficient, and confident part of the surgical team. It is prudent to adopt and use technology as a tool of the trade for the peri-operative personnel. Now, taking a note from Dr. Riba's talk yesterday about, hold on, let's see, scalability. So we thought, like, if we can be more efficient, like turnover-wise, we can be more efficient. Like, we know what we're doing. Maybe we can buy you that extra amount of time to go see one more consult before the end of the day. Like in the OR right now, they're pushing for like a fast turnover, literally like 20 minutes from the first patient or the wheel of the gurney getting out from the room to the next patient coming into the room. Google Glass has the potential Well, let's see. It's actually an effective device to improve personal performance, which translates to a cost-effective, efficient, and safe delivery of medical and surgical care. When I was training as a surgical technologist, we're always taught to anticipate surgeons' needs. So with Google Glass, it gives a whole new meaning to the word, anticipating surgeons' needs, because you're just there on the moment. So to end that, I would say thank you, and I would like to say thank you for my institution, Keck Medical Center of USC, my mentor, Dr. Ziegler, and Paul Zotek for inviting me here. By the way, I just want to add something to, this is a perfect sample. Right before I flew in from Los Angeles Thursday night, I was on call. We were gonna do a tracheal resection on a 49-year-old female with immunocompromised diabetes, high blood pressure, and obese. A story of multi-tracheostomy and tracheal dilation. So in those cases, we routinely do a direct laryngoscopy to reassist and find out where's the narrowing of the trachea. So when they go in and find out that, it's just a small band of tissue that can be lasered, so the doctor decided to get it done with laser. Unfortunately, it's late night. We do have a laser in-house, but we don't have a technician. Our technician is contracted from outside. Fortunately, I was there and I have a little bit of training, not a little bit, but I had been trained to operate on laser, but I just don't have the certificate. So I said, we can do this. And they decided, and we actually did it through laser, which actually turned the whole case upside down. The patient could have been under surgery for 2 to 3 hours. And then post-op, she's probably going to be staying in the hospital for 2 days and 2 weeks with her chin literally tied into her chest, so you won't accidentally pull out the anastomosis. So this is one example of having OR glass on the OR. So without being actually properly trained, you can have access to information on how to operate the device on a given situation. So again, I just find out from my resident that the patient was discharged yesterday after Friday, and then everything went well. So with that demonstration, the use of OR glass or technology, especially Google Glass in the OR, could significantly change patient outcome, as demonstrated here. And again, I would say thank you.
I have a question, John. So obviously you're going to need some collaboration from medical device companies in order to make this work. So what's your expectation from the healthcare manufacturer, medical device or pharma, to jump on board and allow this kind of technology to stream to glass or other wearable technologies?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of cooperation. I did approach one company, the Olympus, and they turned it down. Obviously, they probably have a different methods that they're developing or they want to put in place. Again, I'm not giving up. I'm passionate of this, and the reason I'm here. This is a full disclosure. Any developer or any company that want to develop something similar to this, or if there's something I can help you with, inside information, I would be more than willing. Yes, sir.
Thanks very much for a terrific talk, and it begs for all the products that are in your operating room to have a standardized display of directions. It's an expectation that's there, and you can then quickly access the information as you need it. The question I have is, how about your colleagues in anesthesia? With that wonderful example of the craniotomy wound site, does the anesthesiologist also want to see that operative site to be partnered with the surgeon about excessive bleeding, other ways in which they can be part of the team in this particular operative intervention?
Well, yeah. when I presented this, I didn't want to just focus on the surgical technologist. That's why I titled it the peri-operative personnel, which is composed of the RNs, the CRNAs. I think we have a CRNA here that we just had a discussion earlier today. Definitely, it would be it would be available for everybody. Even the medical students or the residents or the fellow. I think that's what's big right now in healthcare. Like one of our institutions in California, UC Irvine, are incorporating glass in their curriculum. So yeah, definitely it's for everybody to wanted to utilize the application. Okay, thank you. Great. Oh, thank you.
Then I'm going to introduce Divya Dar. And we just recently met. Is it okay for you?
Yeah, I'm just going to pull up.
Okay. Okay, well, Divya's going to present now.
Hi guys, my name is Divya Dar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Certus. I usually try to move away from the podium because otherwise no one can see me, but I don't think that's even going to work. So let me tell you the problem. When my uncle became a doctor 30 years ago, he was given a pager to help him communicate with his team, and I'm almost certain almost every single doctor here carries a pager right now. When I became a doctor 4 years ago, I was given the same bloody thing. Imagine if the Chicago Bulls team was 10 times the size, playing on 10 different courts, players coming on and off court all of the time and at different times, and their primary means of communication was a pager. Would they still be as successful? Yet that's what's expected when a patient walks into a hospital or any healthcare system, be it outpatient or inpatient. They're seen by a wide array of providers. Each one of these are looking after 10 to 20 other patients, and they're all coming on and off shift all of the time and at different times. So often, one of the primary questions that they ask themselves is, who else is looking after my patient? So while we talk about glass, we all carry smartphones in our pocket, yet this still plagues our healthcare system. 30 years old technology. So what I'm here to talk to you guys about is mobile technology and using that as a convergence to wearables. So when you ask a doctor, what causes you to have the most waste of time for patient information, almost all of them say it's the pager. 57% of physicians are currently using their personal phones to text each other patient information, knowing it's unlawful. But they do it anyway because they rather put the data at risk than their patient. This is also constituting a huge loss in the industry in terms of productivity. Each doctor is wasting about an hour a day, failing to communicate, and a nurse wastes up to 25% of her shift time. We're not even looking at other care coordinators like case managers, social workers, other ancillary staff required to support your patient. So just doctors and nurses, $8 million for average hospital. Take that across the US and you get a whopping $44 billion loss. Now, it's not just frustrating, it's not just expensive, it's also extremely risky. All of this communication happens outside of the hospital wall on disparate devices, and there's no medical legal record. Now, there are other secure messaging solutions there to solve this problem. They provide HIPAA compliance and messaging. But let me ask you, if 7 out of 10 members of a patient's care team are unknown to each other, 7 out of 10, what good is it to be able to send someone a secure message when you don't know who you're sending that message to in the first place? That's the question we want to answer. Who should I contact? So what Certus is developing is a platform where anyone can come in and see for their given patient who else is looking after their team. So imagine this being like your medical Facebook. For any given patient, you see the entire network. And then you can start sending any one of these people a message as and when you want. Let me go through a solution with you first. So hi, I'm a doctor. I'm walking into my shift at 6 p.m. in the hospital, and my nurse comes up to me and says, your patient, Jack Smith, has got abdominal pain. I'm wondering, is this pain old or new? I log into Ceratis and I see a list of my patients. I tap on Jack Smith. I see Jack in the middle with all his care team around him. This screen is dynamic. It changes as people come on and off shift. Right now I'm interested in Jack and his abdominal pain. I tap on him in the middle, and I can see all the messages that have been sent about Jack prior to me even starting my shift. Just like an EMR, I have access to all the messages that are going on about Jack in real time. So I see there's one on abdominal pain. I tap on that, and I can see the messages have been sent prior to me starting by previous doctors. Now I know what to do. I go back to the patient-centric screen, and I start a consultation with a general surgical on-call resident. I type in my message, choose my priority, and send. Very quickly, I can see this message has been read and responded to, hence closing the loop. Now, if all we were doing was enabling you to see your patient's care network, which we are, I think that itself is revolutionary. But for the first time in healthcare history, we're able to capture real-time communication data in one centralized database. And there's so much you can do with analytics there that hasn't even been thought about because we haven't been able to capture that information. So let me go over that with you now. Seralytics. So there's three major things that we're doing with analytics. One is operational optimization, so being able to let you know what your response times are. So let's say you're an administrator of a hospital. You are thinking about why is one ward or one particular department poor performer versus another? And is communication one of the key challenges? And many times it is one of the major challenges. We can actually tell you what response times are on that ward. Are people choosing appropriate priorities for messages? And hence enable you to kind of go through process optimization. Syndromic surveillance is things like a lot of studies have come out of Harvard Medical School recently around Twitter data and Yelp data. So what they're looking at is things like, if we follow the word flu, can we see a outbreak in flu prior to CDC? And actually the answer is yes, but it's confounded by things like Bieber fever. So imagine we're capturing all this real-time communication data by healthcare professionals with very little confounding. We can actually detect that outbreak much faster and with much more accuracy. Final thing is around change management. Because we know for every patient the relationships around that patient, we can actually develop charts like this. This is real data coming out of our site in Texas. You can see the patients are the green boxes, and the people in the middle are power users, and the people in the periphery are the peripheral medium or low users. So if you ever asked us, for my diabetic patients, I want to do a change management initiative where we're putting a new intervention and we want to teach people what to do. We can tell you exactly who to go after. These are the 10 users that will really help. If you train them really well, they'll get the word out to the rest of the network. Finally, it's Seralytics personalized. So being able to give data in the hands of the clinician themselves. So telling any clinician how they're responding to messages and compare that to best practices. Now, any technology has its unintended consequences, and what I haven't heard from this, from a bunch of the talks here is, what are the unintended consequences of glass? So let me just tell you from the texting world, and maybe that will start some conversations about what could happen if glass was used everywhere all the time, as has been spoken about. So in texting world, actually what people have noticed is that when people switch from pagers to text messages, the number of interruptions increase by almost threefold, and that can actually increase medical errors because you're basically interrupting people asynchronously while they're on the go. And that is what exactly we're trying to reduce. We're trying to reduce medical errors by enabling communication. So hence, if you notice, there is some conundrum there. There's also this thought around poor user interface and how that in itself causes medical errors. So these are studies coming out showing if you don't do this right from the beginning, you will have unintended consequences of very major errors. So as you see, human alone is one of the major factors, but the next is human software. So it's especially important to test your technology before you start using it across the field. So we are pilots in multiple sites, including OR and emergency medicine. It's while we're in the OR department, we've been asked by a clinician, this is so awesome. We've got messages coming from, nurse or a consultant in like different parts of the hospital. I see exactly what's going on with my patient, where they are. Is it possible for those messages, since if I'm on glass and I'm in the operating room, can that message come through in glass? So that's my ask for you. We're actually only just beginning to develop Certus for glass and what that could look like. So we're here for communication, not in terms of video communication, but in terms of asynchronous communication. So if anyone in the audience is interested in working on that with us, we'd love to hear from you. So that's us, Certus. We'd love to take any questions.
How are you getting around the fact that you're saying texting is a more interrupted way of conveying messages? Is the messages coming through in real time, and how does that improve workflow compared to texting?
Yeah, so what we actually do is we enable presence settings. So as soon as you set a presence like you're busy, we're not going to push messages that are low or medium priority to you. Those are messages that you'll pull. So if you're in operating room, you put yourself as like busy presence, you're not going to see those messages until you come out. So there's many things, and that's like the most easy way we could do this, but there's also like algorithm learning that we're doing in the background, so we can tell you every time someone sends a sleep medication message that's a high priority, in fact it isn't, because we know how clinicians are responding to that message, so we will alter how quickly that gets sent to you as well. Yeah.
Just a comment, Facebook, but this I get, and this is important.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Thank you so much.
It's kind of spontaneous moderation this afternoon. I'm going to ask Johan van Heineken. He's from Sweden all the way, Karolinska. And, Johan is taking his stuff with him too. Well, happy to have you here. And curious after your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Johan van Hedeken, and I'm a pediatric orthopedic surgeon at Karolinska University Hospital in Stockholm, Sweden. And I would like to thank Paul and Marley for the opportunity to give this talk that will to some extent overlap with previous talks. And also like to thank John Bennett for the pre-conference hangouts. I found them very interesting. And my background is I did a PhD in epidemiology and biomechanics. I don't have a teaching degree. I'm not an expert on wearable technology. I'm not an entrepreneur. And the Swedish perspective on the topic is that we are years behind our colleagues in the US, mainly because it's been very hard for us to get access to the glass. And even though my ambition is to give a talk entitled Google Glass and Medical Education. So I haven't received any financial or other benefits for these presentations. And an overview of my presentation is I will talk a little bit about medical education. Some of you have a degree within healthcare, some of you don't. And then I will talk about possibilities to use Google Glass in medical education. And this will be, we heard most of it before during this conference. And then I will review published studies, and I will also discuss how can we measure if smart glasses enhance student learning. So it is difficult to transfer knowledge, especially knowledge about practical procedures. When you just think about how hard it is for parents to teach their teens how to drive. And the key to acquire medical knowledge is practice. Because without some kind of shared experience between the teacher and the student, it's very hard to understand each other's thinking processes. And therefore, medical education, regardless if you're studying to become a physiotherapist, nurse, or becoming a doctor, your education has been very visual and demonstrative. But the medical education is changing in the digital age. And today, information is really easy to access. But medical knowledge is not alone determined by information, because it's the knowing process that decides which information that is relevant and how to be used. But even though most medical programs start with a stage when you're collecting information, you do it through books, lectures, e-learning, the internet, and the student needs to cover a large number of topics in a short time. And the role of the educator is to put this information into a context, and so the student can understand what is relevant. And gradually, the training becomes more practical, and you're collecting knowledge through patient contact under the guidance of and supervision of a senior colleague. And there are many models to describe the learning styles in the literature, and one is Kolb's. Basically, you have an experience, and then you reflect over your experience, and then you learn from the experience, and then you use that experience in the real world and to see what happens. But in surgery, this is simply called see one, do one, teach one. So I am the course coordinator for the undergraduate pediatric orthopedic course for medical students at my hospital. And I'm also involved in teaching the residents, the fellows. And the more I teach, the more I understand that one system or one way of teaching, one method, doesn't work for every student or every situation. And I'm going to give you a story that one night when I was late and I was on call in my home, the resident called from the OR, and he was in his scrub. The nurse in the OR was holding the telephone to his ears, and it was hard for me to hear what he was saying, but he explained to me that he could not stabilize this wrist fracture in this kid that he was operating. And I could not understand why. He could not describe the problem for me. So I asked him, can you describe the X-ray for me? And I couldn't understand how the X-ray looked like. And we don't have any way to stream information from the operating room to my home, to my computer. So what I had to do, it was put on my clothes, get to the car, drive to the hospital, and then I walked into the OR, and it took me 30 seconds to explain for the resident how to solve the problem. And he did it by himself. So the next day, when I read about Google Glass, I started to think that maybe we have a new technical platform that allows us to improve the transportation of practical knowledge, and about practical procedures. And so I decided to set up a research project to validate if Google Glass or smart eyewear in medical education improves the learning. And right now I'm writing the research plan with colleagues at Karolinska Institutet and colleagues at Northeastern University in Boston. And I would like to acknowledge in Boston, it's Professor Maura Iversen. She's a behavioral scientist and professor and chairperson of the Department of Physical Therapy. And at Karolinska Institutet, I work with Italo Masiello. He's an associate professor, and he's the president of the Swedish Association for Clinical Training and Medical Simulation. And well, he's also the director of Simulation and Interprofessional Education Center at Karolinska Institutet. So I don't think I need to introduce Google Glass to you in the end of this conference, but I would like to mention that in medical education, the functions of Google Glass can be used alone or in combination. And we have to remember that Google Glass is a high prototype intended for the mass markets, but it is the first of its kind that is out there. But there are many tiny crowd-funded companies and big companies that are developing new types of smart glasses. And future smart glasses will maybe be specially made for the healthcare industry, and with all the privacy hardware and software issues worked out that we talked about earlier on this conference. And augmented reality and virtual interactive technology will be improved with better transparent displays. But like the tablets and the smartphones, smart eyewear is an inspirational technology. And I think new ideas for medical education is formed by the students who grew up in the digital age and the teachers in using the smart eyewear. But however, most educators are not entrepreneurs or have the skill to develop new products. But there are a lot of companies out there who realize that this is a new market to conquer. And I think the evolution of new apps that are disease-specific or specialty specifics or teacher-specific or educational specific will be from collaboration between universities and the industry. And this conference is an example of that. Another example is UCI, that will be the first medical university to integrate Google Glass in their 4-year curriculum. And I think this will give a lot of valuable knowledge for the companies that they are collaborating with. But it will also help the educators to answer the following: how to use smart eyewear for teaching and learning, and which subjects are appropriate for smart eyewear. And I believe that initially we will see most applications for smart eyewear related to learning practical procedures. But we have to remember that smart glasses have not gained social acceptance in the society or by the IT department in our hospitals. And there is a possibility that patients are not ready to be examined by students who are wearing glasses, Google Glass. But both bedside manner or clinical skill can be taught or by people who have been trained to portray the characteristics of a real patient. And one example is to having these volunteer patients to wear the smart glasses so the student can watch themselves from the patient's perspective and learn from that information and to better understand how it is to be a patient. And we were talking about checklist. As a student, you use mental or written checklist or algorithms to learn how to structure your interview, patient interview or patient examination. And as we heard, companies are already developing products that let you launch this checklist while using your Google Glass. The good thing is that this allows you to get access to a checklist that is appropriate for the situation. You don't have to take your eye off the patient, and I don't think it's appropriate to take up your smartphone and and look for the appropriate checklist when you examine your patient. But I think you need to access this checklist fast. That we won't use them otherwise. You cannot spend 5 minutes trying to get the checklist. Otherwise, you just have a paper by you, like this guy. And another example of how you can use smart eyewears in medical education is that the student could stream his or her physical exam of a patient, and then an attending doctor or physiotherapist could provide real-time feedback. And maybe it's because the patient is asleep or surgeons like new gadgets, or maybe it's not relevant, but adding a pair of smart glasses to the surgeon's uniform doesn't matter from a fashionable perspective. But surgeons seem to be the one who's leading who are using Google Glass a lot around the world. And this is a photo of Dr. Kading, Ohio State University, who was performing the first surgery where he consulted a consult that was not in the OR. And a month ago in the UK, a surgeon was performing a procedure, and 13,000 students in 115 countries around the world were following this procedure, and they could write questions that the surgeon could see in his glass, and he could answer them while he was performing the surgery. So the device could, if I look from my perspective as an orthopedic surgeon, I think this device with smart glasses you can mentor junior surgeons, like that night when I had to go to the hospital. And to be a master in surgery, to become a master in surgery, you need to practice with feedback. But there's another thing. You need to gradually build your confidence so you can perform the surgery alone. And I think this is something that is valuable in surgical training. So I did a review on published articles in PubMed and Web of Science, and I found 5 papers that been evaluating Google Glass in a clinical setting. And I will, on the next slide, present each of these studies in relation to medical education. But in summary, they are rather primitive, and when it comes to the study design. And they all concluded that Google Glass may be an adequate tool in medical education, but to use it in a clinical setting, there needs to be changes to improvement in the hardware and the software. And then I did a search in clinicaltrial.gov, and it revealed no information about ongoing or planned studies with Google Glass. But as Dr. Romero mentioned in his excellent talk, I don't think that big randomized controlled RCTs is the way to go. But regardless, I think we will in the future see a lot of published studies related to Google Glass. So the first study I found is from University of Arkansas. And what they did, they explored how to use Google Glass in 4 different cardiovascular scenarios. A fellow is wearing the glass, and he's contacting his senior that will guide him to go through this step by step. And their conclusion was that it had huge potential in medical education. And then, in a study from New York Medical College and Hanover in Germany, they explored the Google Glass by using it for 4 weeks in a hospital. And what they concluded was that Google Glass allows you to visualize a situation from the student's perspective in a way previously not feasible. And they also said Google Glass is good for hands-free photo, video documentation, online search, and making hands-free telephone calls. And then the same group explored the use of Google Glass in a forensic setting. And what they concluded was that when you do an autopsy, there are only a number of students who can watch that. But with using Google Glass, a large number of students can watch the procedure. And in a paper from University of Arizona, they used Google Glass during limb salvage surgery in 3 cases. And in the first case, a surgeon used Google Glass to consult with another surgeon outside the OR. In the second case, a junior resident is using the Google Glass and was assisted by a senior colleague not in the room. And in the third case, the junior resident with Google Glass had access to an article describing the procedure he was performing. And they concluded that Google Glass has the potential to enhance communication in medical education. And then in a study from Boston, they used Google Glass in 2 cases, and where they filmed the intubation process, and they concluded that it can be a useful tool for teaching. So to my knowledge, there are currently no published papers evaluating the efficiency of smart glasses in teaching and learning. And an important question when you plan this kind of study is to find a situation where the glass actually adds something. It has to be, the rationale for and benefits of using the glass has to be obvious. And another important question is how and when to measure the learning outcome. Should we measure it immediately or after 6 months? And to which extent can the result of the study be attributed to the introduction of Google Glass? So, even if we shouldn't aim for big RCTs, I think by studies on evaluating the benefits of smart eyewear will help us to answer the 2 questions that I mentioned earlier in this presentation. How to use smart eyewear for teaching and learning, and which subjects are appropriate for smart eyewear. And I'm biased since I'm a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, but I think the musculoskeletal clinical skill teaching for undergraduates or laboratory-based surgical training and simulations for residents is a good place to start conducting research evaluating Google Glass in education, because this environment allows repetitive, standardized test situations and does not have to involve patients. And I also think it's a lot easier to get your IRB approved if you conduct a study in this environment. And for example, synthetic bones have previously been used in studies evaluating training, and it would be interesting to see if smart glasses could help the students to learn a surgical procedure or a specific task, for example, putting on a short arm cast on a synthetic forearm, or to perform a physical exam. And you can let the participant be randomized either to using the Google Glass or not to use the Google Glass. And to repeat what I've said earlier, the student, while they're doing in this study, they can watch a video tutorial from the first perspective while performing the procedure. You can also, they can perform the procedure and they can get feedback from the teacher. And the student can also record their own procedure through the glass and analyze their own performance. And the learning outcome can be evaluated by using checklists to document which items were completed during the test. And by using global rating scales, it's possible to measure how these tests are performed and the quality of the final product. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how other groups are evaluating if smart glasses are valuable in medical education. So the conclusion is that smart eyewear it has huge potential for medical education, but it's still more fun than functional right now. But it's definitely have the promising of becoming the next big thing. And when it's more widely available, in Sweden, for example, the industry, in collaboration with students and teachers, will find new ways to use the tool in medical education. And I believe that there is a need of well-designed studies that can prove the benefits of smart eyewear in medicine. Because when I teach pediatric orthopedic surgery for the undergraduates, I have 1 week. If I'm going to introduce Google Glass, I need to cut something out. And I think studies in medical education will convince the rest of the medical society of the value of smart glasses. So are there any questions?
Thank you, Johan. Anyone?
Okay, yeah.
So in Sweden, what is the response from the students and teachers that in your institution about the use? I'm more of a visceral and scientific response.
I think that the students are really interested in new techniques, and I also think that by just introducing Google Glass in your teaching, you will get the attention of the students. It actually adds. That could be one reason why they learn something from that procedure.
Is it because it's a novelty, or is it?
Yeah, I think it's the novelty. So, and you have to take that into account if you're evaluating the smart glasses. Thank you.
I'm curious, given that
yeah.
And managing all the kinds of technologies, how are you going to prioritize how you can get other priorities?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question, and that's why I had this slide that you don't need to use all the functions of the Google Glass in every situation. You can use them alone, and a lot of the products that people have been presenting are working in that way. They use one function, and definitely if you just can send images from the OR to the consultant on call at home, that would be great. And I also think the resident and the consultant will feel a lot more, let's say, comfortable with letting the resident be alone in the hospital. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, next one up is Kyle Samani. He is the co-founder of Pristine. As you can see from his big chest. Can't confuse me there. Well, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hey guys, if you want to download a copy of my talk, I just tweeted a link. If you guys want to, you can download a PDF of what I'm about to go through if you want to follow along. My Twitter is just Kyle Samani. KYLESAMANI. Is there a VGA plug? Oh, here we go. Never mind. Ready to get started? All right, guys. So my name is Kyle Samani. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Pristine. I'll give you guys a quick background on myself. By the way, if you guys want to at any point contact me, my contact info is along the bottom of every slide. If you want to email me, tweet at me, whatever, feel free to at any point along the way. Quick background on myself. Before starting Pristine, I spent 3 years at an EMR company. I spent 1 year in engineering, 1 year in technical sales, and 1 year as a product manager responsible for all their clinical applications. I'm very familiar with HIPAA, CCDA's kind of modern interoperability challenges. If anyone here is on the AMDIS listserv, thank you for contributing to AMDIS. It's a great content source. And I studied finance. My degree has nothing to do with what I like, but theoretically I know business stuff. So Pristine. So I started Pristine in May of last year with my co-founder Patrick. He's our CTO. We are VC backed. We just raised our first round of financing. We're not allowed to disclose who just yet, but we'll be soon. We're headquartered at downtown Austin, Texas. We've got 12 employees, and we are hiring at a whole bunch of different roles. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out. We're deployed in a number of places. So here's kind of where we're currently at. Most of our deployments we're not allowed to talk about publicly, but this map is what I am allowed to, I guess, show. UC Irvine, a few people have talked about UC Irvine, as well as Brown University and Rhode Island Hospital, and then MedX Ambulance. So I'll talk about more of these in a bit, but we've deployed our stuff in quite a few places, and we have a number of deals now that we either just signed or are about to sign that are going to increase the scope of our rollouts quite a bit. So the greens would be the ones that are, the go-lives are being kind of planned right now. So we've got a lot of cool stuff happening. We've learned a lot about glass. And so I'm going to kind of talk about, how do we think about what is scalable commercial success? We as an independent company, I'm not a doctor. We have no doctors on our team. We don't have access to a university hospital or a lab to play around in, right? So we have to think about this as a business. We have to approach strangers or hospitals and say, hey, pay us money so you can use this so we can create value for you. And so we've done a lot to kind of, A, deal with all the basic challenges of HIPAA and stuff. But then I'd argue even more importantly, B, is think about how you can scale that. So you don't just do something in one place, but you can repeat that and do it in many places. So just some this isn't everything that we think about goes into it, but some of the core tenets of thinking about what really makes, us being able to scale. Is thinking about being able to manage everything in the cloud and having an automated system, with SLAs, everything is multi-tenant, it can be centrally managed where you can have one DevOps guy manage, 10 or 50 clients and thousands of users, right? We're thinking about repeatability and scalability. Thinking about provisioning devices. So that means getting not just an APK loaded onto the device, but thinking about everything else you might need to do to that device to get it ready. That means getting Wi-Fi loaded on there. And in our case, we actually strip out, we have our own custom image of the Glass OS that we put on the devices. The reason we do that is so we guarantee you can't violate HIPAA, right? You can't accidentally say in our deployments, okay, Glass, take a picture, and have things magically go to Google+. We simply guarantee that that cannot happen. And being able to automate all of these processes so that we can have very either no labor at all or very low level, $8 an hour type of labor, get college students to be able to do this stuff. We don't need engineers to be able to get our clients up and running. Having administrative dashboards so you can manage everything, see usage logs, get those out to your clients, thinking about really how to build a really scalable business, and getting all that stuff in place. So that's kind of like the preface. So we've got some good stuff that's happened, and we've got a lot we've accomplished in the past, 15 months now. So the way I actually am somewhat cynical about glass, which is, funny I say that since I run a glass company. But I think the hardest challenge with glass is answering the question, why not a smartphone? I actually think that's a harder question to answer than most people in this room do. Glass is a very limited device, right? You kind of have, thinking about a smartphone, what's really better about glass? And actually, it's somewhat limited. It's hands-free, which is great. You've got that first-person camera, which we utilize a lot. And, you can frictionlessly get data. And these are good things, but if you think about it, it's like, okay, well, in what environments are those traits super, super valuable that will really change how you do your job? And surgeons, okay, paramedics, yeah, kind of. A lot of other places, those traits, although they're cool, they're not actually really make or break. You'd be fine, just using an iPhone. Just because Epic and Cerner suck and their iPhone apps are read-only and they're poorly organized, right? That doesn't mean glass is the solution. That just means you need a better iPhone app. It's a challenge with glass, and I think the kind of inverse of those challenges are the limitations of glass. Glass is not the device we'd all like to have. It's pretty limited in a lot of ways. Screen small, battery sucks, and the user interaction model is extremely limited. Your choices are up, down, left, and right, and you have some trivially small voice commands that are built into just the basic level of the OS. So it's telling you what to do is not easy. Can't fit a lot of stuff. The battery is small. How are you going to, it's just, you can't do a whole lot of stuff. And by the way, I've written some blog posts about all this, just at a very philosophical, UX level. So how do we think about how to approach glass in healthcare, having said all these really shitty things about how much it doesn't do? And so we kind of ask ourselves, well, let's think back. we've had new user experience models emerge over the years and new form factors come out. So if we look back to the original PC, like what are the first things that happened with the PC? And I'd argue that, does this work? Yes. So I'd argue that, if you look back in 1980 timeframe, the first real app that drove adoption of PCs was VisiCalc, which is the old school version of what is now Excel, right? But you could have spreadsheets and click in numbers and then do financial modeling. Like that was the first compelling reason to have a PC. It was the first app that really worked. It took 4 or 5 more years, you started getting into word processing and having like a dictionary that could spell check for you and like having these amazing, like that was revolutionary in 1983, right? So like those were like what I'd call the low-hanging fruits of having a PC, right? And we now all take that stuff for granted. A few years later, you started getting into email. In the early 90s was like desktop publishing era. So now you had Adobe Illustrator. So you could have people like lay out newspapers and like magazines, right? With some nice graphical tools with the mouse and you could drag blocks around. And again, we all take that stuff for granted now. But that was like kind of the next step after just like typing words and Excel. And then if you go a little bit further, now you start getting into like kind of the more modern stuff, which are like really sophisticated media management, having all kinds of images and photos and video editing, having Google Now with just magic in the cloud and things pop up. You don't even know what you want, and it's just popping up for you, right? So that's kind of like this like progression of all these things that have happened over the course of the past 25 years. And so the question is like, how do we take that same thinking and apply it to glass? Like what are going to be the things that in 20 years we're like, yeah, those were the first things that were going to happen, right? And it's not going to be everything. It's going to be a very limited, narrow set of things if we just kind of keep running with that analogy. And so our thesis is that it's really going to be mostly about the simple stuff. I'm going to come back and talk more about these, but like a lot of the cool things we want to do with glass, like walk into a room and like magical things start popping up. So we know everything about our patient and we have facial recognition and I can look at your face and it's going to tell me your skin temperature. Like, yes, all of these kinds of things sort of exist in different FDA bubbles in other places, but like aggregating all of those together into a good user experience that not just your skin temperature reader works, but it works in conjunction with your EMR and works in conjunction with your text messaging system and your lab alerting system, and having all of those things coherently tied together, like that stuff is still 5 years away because the form factor is still so young and the apps aren't there. So although it's like the dream and it's not very hard to dream about it, it's like not going to happen anytime soon, even if all of the little bits and pieces of getting there are already there in some form or fashion today. So our thoughts are, how do we start what's the simplest thing we can do? And this is very much just our thesis. Like there's no right or wrong answer to that. Like there's no historical proof. But at Pristine, we believe that it's going to be really the simplest things that matter most. So starting with video streaming, checklists, and lookup guides. And so that's all we're doing today. We do eventually plan to climb up the tree. But for now, right, we have a very narrow focus. And that's kind of one of our things that we've focused on to succeed. We don't want to deal with EMRs. We don't want to deal with your devices. We don't want to deal with the FDA. We want to actually prove that this works and be able to scale it. We have limited runway. We have to make payroll, so we can't afford to just sit around waiting for the FDA or EMR companies to work with us. So like I was saying, there's all these cool things you can think of, right? Like having vitals on your face and doing all, and it's like, these are all great, but I'd also argue each of these apps independently, I don't know if they actually justify buying glass. What I would call, I think a lot of these are what I call Angry Birds applications. What does that mean? So you guys all have iPhones or Androids. Would any of you buy your $500 phone so you can only have Angry Birds on your phone and have nothing else? No phone, no Gmail, no Google Maps. Would anyone here buy an iPhone so you can only play Angry Birds? Right? Like that doesn't make sense. But Angry Birds is a massive success because if you already have an iPhone and Angry Birds is 99 cents, then Angry Birds is a phenomenal deal. You can drive hours and hours and hours of entertainment for 99 cents. Like how wonderful is that? And so the question is to think about with applications for glass, it's the same thing. What are going to be the core applications that drive adoption of this new thing? And then what are going to be the apps that can exist because it's already there? And so thinking a little bit more explicitly, like what are some of these basic costs you have to overcome? So like bag carrying salesmen, if you're going to try and scale this out to many hospitals, you got to have dudes who show up and do demos. And those guys are expensive. I mean, they're not $30,000 a year employees. These guys cost money. They're smart. Hardware, you got to buy hardware, obviously. You got to manage hardware once it's deployed in the hospitals. Hardware management is one of our biggest problems. You got to integrate with existing systems, and you got to convince people, why is there this stupid thing on my face, right? And it's like all of these together, like if you think about it, it's like, okay, so I want to have text messages on my face. Well, that's great, but like are text messages on my face as opposed to text messages on my phone? Like, is that going to overcome all of these things that we're going to need to these kind of costs and challenges? And I'd argue for most of the things you want to do with glass, the answer is no. I think there's only a few core things that can really at scale justify all of these types of costs that go into making this thing work. And not just to work at your internal hospital demo where your surgeon has privileges to do magic, but where you can independently go and scale this and repeat it in many places. So what are we doing, right? I've kind of been like very philosophical about how we think about like the world and how we're looking at it. And so we really are trying to say what's like a really big problem that we can address systematically with glass. And I think one of the most interesting ones is the kind of labor imbalance that we see. So you guys have all probably seen this chart in some form or fashion. Like there's, in 2025, we're going to be short 100,000 physicians, right? And like, oh my God, we're all going to die. We're going to be sick and there won't be enough doctors to see us. It's going to be terrible. And specifically, if you count it up, it's 125,000 shortage. I think this is a Kauffman Foundation chart. These aren't my numbers. These are someone else's, right? And the biggest problem here is that residency spots are fixed. So there's literally no way to solve this problem at the supply and demand level. I mean, it's just literally regulatory impossible. But what we're seeing happen instead is, mobile workers mid-levels are doing more and more. So RNs, nurse practitioners, even MAs are starting to do stuff. Paramedics, home health workers, right? And there's more and more mid-levels doing more and more stuff. And so that's kind of a combination you're seeing happen of like automated diagnostics, whether it's devices doing diagnostics, whether it's machine learning stuff like Watson, maybe it's checklists and protocols. But increasingly, you're taking all of the hardest part of being a doctor, and we're trying to automate that into software of some form. And the result is you're going to have lower level staff trying to care for patients, and they're going to be relying on these tools to get the job done. And so we want to really fit into that thesis, and we want to empower those mobile workers using a really mobile form factor, because most of those guys are very mobile people running around. And so we look at the world as a hub and spoke model, where you're going to have triaging. You'll have, whether it's paramedics or nurses or RNs seeing patients and working with patients, they'll have checklists, they'll have protocols, they'll be able to look up basic information. And if they need help, then they can call back via video to whoever they need. If they want to send a video feed with a dermoscope or an ophthalmoscope or an otoscope or whatever video scope they have or audio, right, you want to be able to support that too and send that data back from your mid-levels back to your doctors and kind of your core hubs. And so that's really kind of how we're trying to get there, is building along that word. So tying back to this slide again to reiterate, like everything I talked about here, that really is what's going to make this a reality. Is like thinking about kind of technical specs versus how we want to help shape or help accelerate kind of changes in healthcare. So looking at some explicit use cases. So we're live in all these places and a number of others. So ERs at Brown, I think some people have mentioned Dr. Paul Porter and the folks at Rhode Island Hospital at Brown University. They're doing ER consults. So you guys have probably seen your nice big InTouch robots. They're only $70,000 per year. They drive around and they're really, I think, kind of silly. And they're just a video camera, and they cost $70,000 per year. If you want to go Cisco and Polycom instead, it's only $30,000 to get started. Like, these systems are outrageously expensive. Well, why shouldn't you have a cloud-based solution that you can use iPhone, iPad, Android, Glass, PC? Like, just get a stupid computer, put a video hosted in the cloud, make sure you get everything encrypted and connect people. And so we're doing that. Our clients they're using Glass in the ER, they're using their iPhones. Like, we're not a Glass-only company by any means, because you have to receive video on the other side. On other devices. So they're using iPhones for that stuff. They're also using now ophthalmoscopes, dermoscopes, any audio video scope they can get, they're hooking into the platform so they can send that video from the local ER to the consultant. They started in dermatology and they're adding other disciplines now. Surgery and anesthesia. So in surgery, we have some folks doing really cool stuff. We have one group of surgeons where they have residents in 2 ORs running 2 cases. And it used to be that the attending was just jumping back and forth constantly between the 2 ORs. And now the attending is putting glass on both residents so that he can stay in one OR. And if the other guy needs help, he's just beaming in real fast for a minute. And if he doesn't actually need to go over, then he doesn't move anywhere. They're also doing the same thing for trauma late at night with residents. Anesthesia is doing some really cool stuff. So anesthesia already has this hub and spoke model I've talked about with anesthesiologists and CRNAs and residents. That's already part of the modern practice of anesthesia. And so we're now putting glasses on these mid-levels, and anesthesiologists are now covering multiple ORs, and not just ORs, but actually cath labs, GI labs, even labor and delivery, anywhere else that they can't be. Some of these places are 80 yards away, 100 yards away, inside the same building, and they don't want to be running back and forth constantly, especially if they don't know what's going on. So they're doing some really cool stuff out there. Ambulances, you guys might have just seen the press release go out a couple days ago. Chicago Tribune did a big story on us. some folks in ambulances there are using us to do what they call eyes on the patient. So like being able to have the ER doc see the patient for trauma, MIs, whatever. I think actually the cooler thing that they're going to be starting to do pretty soon is what we call triaging at the patient's home. So like the way ambulances work now is these guys are just mercenaries. They drive up to the patient's house. They say, hey, get in the truck. The guy gets in the truck, and then they bring him to the hospital, and then the ER doc triages them at the hospital. It doesn't matter how severe or how acute that injury was. It doesn't matter if they needed to come to the hospital. The guys just say, get in the truck and come to the hospital. Right? The patients don't have to get in the truck, but like 99.9% of the time they do, although there's no legal obligation. And so what we're doing now is we're beaming the doctors out to the patients at the truck, and the trucks have ultrasounds, they have mobile X-rays, they have they have video feeds, they have scopes, so they can get they can get all the basic diagnostics they need, and they can do that at the patient's home rather than at the ER. And so they're driving down admissions and improving efficiency for both the ambulances as well as for the ER itself by doing this. Medical device support. Some people have talked about this. I can't talk in too much depth about what we're doing, but we have some folks doing cool stuff, medical device companies supporting their clients. And even medical education. Folks have talked about UC Irvine, so all the work being done there is powered by us. And we have a couple of other med schools we're now working with that are going to be, they're creating video content, right? Whether live video or recorded video, optimized for glass and healthcare. And so they're doing like anatomy lab dissections, virtual rounding, a whole bunch of other things. UC Irvine will be open sourcing their curriculum, so everyone else can copy them. Like they want to do that. And UC Irvine did that with iPads back in 2010. They were the first medical school to adopt iPads for all the residents, and they open sourced all their course curriculum. Then I guess kind of wrapping things up. So Google, like we've all talked about kind of HIPAA and Glass being HIPAA compliant and Google signing BAAs. Google's never going to sign BAAs to do what you want to do because there's too many different things to be done. Pretty much Google's not going to help you. You shouldn't rely on Google to make Glass HIPAA compliant. Like that's not a thing Google does. That has to be done at a per app level. Like certain functions of our app have to be HIPAA compliant in certain ways, and Google's not going to do that at the OS level. Just like iPhones aren't HIPAA compliant at the iPhone level, and Macs and PCs aren't HIPAA compliant at the PC level. Like there's no such thing. You have to be doing it per app. So don't wait on Google. Google's not going to do anything for you. Right? You're going to need to write your own apps and get a dev team. Like you can do fun stuff and get demos up and running. Like, so for example, we got our first demos functioning in October, and we started testing in October at UC Irvine. I wouldn't say we had a commercially sellable application until probably April. We started generating revenue in February, but honestly, what we were delivering in February wasn't like really ready to go. It was kind of ready to go. Right, just really getting things ready, and then focus. So like we have our thesis about mobile workers, and we're really executing against that thesis. So yeah, that's it, guys. Questions? Yeah.
I know I've asked you 100 questions about Pristine over the last 2 days. So if we're taking one of your business lines, I'm sure there's going to be dozens and dozens. The ambulance line. You guys are powering, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are powering like the video technology, okay. But do you guys also go in and set up like the back end of it, like okay, this is the best practices for how many people you need on call, or like this is the protocol you use or anything like that, or do you leave that up to your customers? And if so, do you have any plans to get into that, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so we're working pretty closely with our clients to kind of figure out the right protocols and best practices. I mean, no one knows. Like Glass introduces a lot of weird challenges. Ambulances haven't really done triaging at the patient's home. And there's been some case studies out there, but no like real scale. So we're figuring out all of the challenges that go into that. And we do plan on then, creating a repeatable service organization that can help our other clients get there. But like we're learning too. The ideas are there. The app seems to be doing what we need it to do functionally, but there's all the nuances of workflow. I mean, where do you keep the glasses? Like in trucks, it's a really hard problem. You don't want them to get smashed or anything. And in surgery and anesthesia, where do you keep the glasses? When you have 2 glasses and it's the surgeon's own glass, that's not a problem. When you have 25 glasses and you have 18 people sharing them, like now device management becomes a problem. So a lot of the basic things are actually, we're figuring that out, and we've created our own literally cases to store glasses. We've had to build, and now we're doing like 3D. I mean, we're making them better. The first ones were foam and like not that good, but we're iterating. Thinking about how do you store them, and we're trying to build modular stacks. So our goal is to have something that will support glass 2 and 3, even though we don't know what glass 2 and 3 look like, and are modular. So if we want 4 or if we want 10 storage containers, to be able to stack them. So it's a challenge. Yeah. Yeah.
Experience with the 1 gig versus 2 gig?
For video streaming, it doesn't matter. Video streaming is bounded by CPU. Memory doesn't really matter. Yeah, so in those models, I mean, it's a collaboration between the hospital and the ambulance, right? The ambulance is the hardest part of the ambulance business is, by definition, this requires coordination with the hospitals, and you're crossing organizational entities. So, like, ideally, we would just work with the ambulance company; they would magically be able to do everything. But we have to have hospitals involved, and not just a hospital, but multiple hospitals. So, from an organizational deployment perspective, it's a big problem. We've gotten to agreements between the ambulance companies and the hospitals and the ambulance companies on how they're going to kind of defer revenue and work that out. But yeah, we can't talk about the details publicly, but yeah, they have figured it out. Yeah.
Just fantastic presentation. I'm always very impressed with your work. With now your business model that you modify glass to provide it to hospitals, do you lose a guarantee that Google may give you just because you modify it? And what steps are you taking for that risk?
So, I mean, I don't know if I'm... So generally, Google knows what we're doing technically to the devices. So, I mean, we are outright putting a new copy of the OS on there. The version of the OS we put on the devices looks like glass. It feels like glass. It still has OK Glass verbal command. The GDK still works. All of the core APIs are there. But we've severed Google from the device entirely. So Google Search, Gmail, Google Maps, text messaging hooking up to my glass, all of those functions are gone. It can still read QR codes off the device, but those are just generic JSON. There's no Google to it. So Google knows what we've done. They know how we've done it. And I can't say they're supportive, but I can definitely say they're happy that we're guaranteeing that PHI doesn't go to their servers, because PHI on their servers is a liability for them. So I'm pretty sure, although what we're doing may or may not void warranty, depending on how you think about it. I think overall they prefer that we do what we do than not, because we absolutely guarantee you cannot get data to Google servers, even if you tried to. Yeah, so, I mean, there's nothing that says we have to wipe the devices and do what we do. That's very much a choice. Our app is an APK. You can load our app onto a standard glass, and it'll function just fine. Performance will be a little bit worse because we do actually free up CPU cycles in our process of wiping the OS, but it'll still work. The reason we do that is because the worst thing that can possibly happen is we deploy 50 glasses into a hospital, and then some guy accidentally takes a picture and uploads it to Google+. Right? Although that's not our fault, and the BAA wouldn't apply to us, the hospital is guaranteed going to throw out all the glasses, and we're going to be screwed as part of the process. The only way we can guarantee that that doesn't happen is to absolutely guarantee that users cannot do that. So it's not a technical problem. This is simply a business problem of there's just no way to do it other than to sever that connection. As far as kind of thinking about people who've bought glasses, I would say, of all the clients we're interacting with now, like looking at all these green guys, I'd say probably 2/3 of them, maybe even 3/4 of them, already have 1, 2, or 3, maybe even 4 glasses internally, and all of them are sitting there collecting dust. And they're like, we want to use our own glasses, and we're like, we appreciate that, but The answer is no, because we're going to manage these. We also upgrade our clients' glasses. So when Glass 2 comes out or Glass 3, we're going to be upgrading our clients as part of their fee. So as a result, we find that it's best to just be unilateral. The reality is if you spend $4,000 on glass hardware, like that's trivial. That doesn't matter. I mean, an MRI cost $1 million. Like this is trivial in terms of cost. Correct. Yeah, I mean, we're not a BYOD, right? We're not saying, hey, surgeon, bring your glass to work. We don't sell to surgeons. We don't sell to doctors. We sell to enterprises. And so we don't have to do with BYOD, right? Again, that's a problem. All of you guys have iPhones, and like you could be a phenomenal nurse. You could be, treating a wound for some patient in the hospital, and you might have Epic, and you might be taking a picture of that wound to upload it to Epic, right? And that's fantastic. Obviously, Epic is secure, and that's all great. But if I was just a random guy walking down the hall and I looked in, I have no idea if you're uploading that picture to Epic or if you're uploading that picture to Twitter. There's no possible way I could tell, right? And that's the BYOD problem. And fundamentally, you can put all these security controls in place and do all these magical things in software. But at the end of the day, if she turns off Wi-Fi and goes straight to cellular, there's no possible way you can stop your nurse from doing that. And that's because it's the nurse's personal phone. We're not selling to Jane to bring in her glass. We're selling to the hospital. So, yeah. So that's what they're doing now. I mean, we have our checklist app that we're starting to kind of roll out. It's not fully baked. It's functional, but it's not fully baked. That's big. They want to be able to, okay, Glass, have arrhythmia checklist, right? And then have, the stuff come up and have verbal cues to run through everything. So that's kind of the next big thing they want to do, but it's not fully there yet. But checklists are big. I mean, again, when we think about checklists, we're thinking very horizontally. So like we're not hard coding our checklist. Everything is database driven. And it's all configurable where you can have, right, like branches of the tree, and you'll be able to have looping patterns and stuff. And then you want to be able to associate certain keywords that go with each checklist item. I don't just want to be next to proceed through the checklist, right? For that given task, whatever it is you're doing, let's say the step is put defibrillator on chest or whatever the item is, right? You want some verbal contextual command that's relevant to what you're doing as opposed to just saying next 84 times. So, building that infrastructure in a way that's configurable where you don't need to change the code at all programmatically to make it all happen. So we're building it very horizontally to support a lot of different use cases.
So where's the value created that offsets, because I know
Yeah, so the economics play out in differently in each use case. I mean, the medical education one, obviously, there's no financial ROI. That one's pretty soft, although they're doing some really cool things, and they will tie that to test scores and stuff. The student responses at UC Irvine are through the roof. We'll say that. They just love it. Looking at the other use cases, it's generally speaking about time. That's the biggest one, and then tying time to outcomes. So in cases like strokes or MIs or trauma, where time starts to become pretty sensitive, measuring, how can we impact outcomes. But ultimately, it is a question of time. Yeah.
I assume you're disabling user.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a problem that's going to emerge over the coming years. I mean, I don't think that's going to none of the glass healthcare companies are developed enough today where that's a problem. The way I also see it is, so my interaction, like we've interacted with folks at Dignity Health and other augmetic sites, and they're not opposed to us. They're just like, look, we have one glass project running right now. We're not going to run another one. Like, glass is too new. And so from a business perspective today, that's not a problem. In 2 years, that's going to be a problem. And we'll see kind of how the Glass OS evolves from Google, and how we'll handle that. We have some ideas internally, and we think we know how the market will play out, but we're not sure. So it's a problem we'll deal with when the time comes. Yeah.
Follow up actually on that comment. It seems like you've gone all in on glass with the custom happens when the next generation of wearable eyes, if you will, comes to glass.
Yeah, so I mean, we already run on Vuzix. We have clients now that run Vuzix. What is X6? I don't know. I mean, we have Vuzix. You know, we're getting Metas, we're getting Atheers, Innovega. Like, we have Recon Jets. We have our tabs on all the other folks doing stuff. All of them run Android at the end of the day. So, you know, we'll see what we have to do. I expect that in 3 or 4 years, hospitals will not have all Google Glasses or all Vuzix devices. I expect you'll have hybrid deployments. Like, the reality is everyone's adopting Android in the eyewear space, other than, let's say, Apple, whenever they release something. And so you're going to have different form factors. And just like right now, if you look at a hospital IT deployment, right, you have a lot of people with iPhones, and you've got 4 different models of iPhones, and you have probably 18 different Android phones, and the hospital has to manage all those devices for both enterprise-issued devices as well as personally-issued devices. And so why are glasses different, right? They're going to be hybrids, and, you know, different hardware form factors will be optimized for different use cases. And so it's going to be our job to support, you know, multiple, if not all of them. And so we're very much taking that into account in our current design. The UX layer is modular from the core logic of the app so that we can modify for different hardware as necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, great presentation, Kyle. One comment and a question. Comment, I can't let you go away with tampering with this audience's perception of EMS workers pulling patients into ambulances and so forth. So please, you might want to temper your remarks about EMS.
Yeah, no, they don't. They tend to ask you to get in the truck and
doing the right thing for the patient. So
yeah.
The question I had is, how do you balance a systems interest, managing a population, commented on, versus a public mission, best for the patient? Balance that with that the public's patient's good self-interests that a system may have in a bottom line outcome.
So I'd argue that that's so. Okay, so first regarding the ambulance comment, what I meant was paramedics don't have the scope of practice to consult with a patient whether or not they should come, right? And so that's what I meant by they just say get in the truck, as a stark contrast to the theoretical world. Regarding kind of the balance, I don't think there is a balance. I think we align interest in both directions. Hospitals have an interest in saving time and saving money and improving outcomes. And since typically EMS calls, although they're not always time critical, in general, you could say they are time critical. Otherwise, you wouldn't drive a truck out there to drive them back in. So by definition, if we can improve time to qualified caregivers who can diagnose and render judgment, then that is in the patient's best interest as well as the provider's best interest. Any other questions, guys? Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kyle. And Paul.
All right, so where's the... So sorry, I had to steal David's Mac here. Hopefully it comes up there. All right. Anything we got to do here, Joe, or get it back up? Hey, Joe. What do I need to do to get it back up? You guys can take a break. We're just going to play this for a second if you're interested in what they were doing. How do I get it back up? To the Mac. Yeah, it's like the other day. It's not working. Try again.
Yeah, because he was just, oh, that's right, not plugged all the way. Do this. Like that. Are you guys going to be able to show your website where you can look at different glasses?
Yeah, it worked kick-ass. We got it going
Did you?
downstairs.
Awesome. That'd be sweet. So you dropped your computer last night?
Yeah, like totally dropped it. All right.
You should be good. Just give it a second.
Alrighty.
There you go.
All right, guys. Here we go. So I do appreciate I'm sorry for the interruption. We've kind of been down there getting things ready and doing different things. And if anybody does want to go to the lab, you're welcome to go down there. Oops, it's not eWatch, right? And so we'll see if we can get them on. So in the last part of the cadaver thing, we had the little link to the Proctor app that we were kind of talking about yesterday. And you can just go to the lab, and so you can sort of pick what streaming view. This is obviously you guys. We can make it full screen. Obviously, we're limited by the bandwidth a little bit. The thing that's nice about this is we can essentially just go and pick the person that we want to see and kind of bounce back and forth. So when I was doing the abdominal wall reconstruction thing earlier, you can see we're bouncing back. This is Rishi and Dave down there right now, getting ready to start with the Context Aware presentation live. And so it's kind of fun. We had a lot of people commenting on it while we were doing the course about being able to see from different directions. So that's 3 glasses. That's Marley looking at me from down there. I set it up. I put her on the glass. So we just traded. She's live now. So it's kind of fun. You can bounce back and forth. And then we can start it from here, stop it from here. And the one thing is we password protected it. And so this one we've actually got off, but you can password protect it so that it asks you for a password. So that's kind of, we're working towards getting that HIPAA compliant portion of it. Now let me see if the Context Aware guys are on. They were on YouTube. Let's see if we can get them on. I just had them up there. I set it up. I put her on the glass. So we just traded. She's live now. Pardon me? Yeah. So just if you go to the website and you go under cadaver, and there's like a little drop down that says Proctor, and the website password is Proctor. No. Please. No, it's I mean, you could share it, but I'm going to change the password. It was what we just did for this company. You're welcome to right now if you want to see somebody. But like I said, it's kind of nice. You can get all these different windows. This is kind of what I was talking about yesterday. This is our on-site platform. It's a little small right here now, but they're getting ready to get going. This is them live. They're getting ready to start. You can kind of tell them they're doing that. And it does have sound. This is coming. So we have one way out sound, and when we were doing it this morning, we did a WebEx in because we didn't want to get the feedback and everything of the actual using two-way on the glass. So we just kind of wanted to show you that a little bit, and you're welcome if you want to watch the whole thing. We can show it to you what it's going to look like, and I think the one thing that's kind of cool is, and we didn't see it earlier. I was trying to make it up here. Is you can see Rishi, who's our student. He's sitting here doing this. This is the one that they just they taped on YouTube, but we didn't have the glass view. So you'll see the regular view, the normal view, and that's what I was going to try and show you. But it doesn't look like they're ready to go. So we'll move on. I'm sorry I didn't know where we were. I just wanted to kind of show you because we talked about the on-site software and the different things and being able to do it. And I was up all night trying to get it to work actually, and then I dropped my computer and broke it and everything. So it looks like they're getting ready to start.
including the X-ray images of our patient downstairs in the ER.
You can hear me talking or something. Anyway, so I'll move on. Unless anybody wants to watch it, you can watch it live on their case.
That's the equivalent, and it's open. So thanks, guys. At this point, I can communicate with our perioperative staff. Hey, what are your documents?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Where were you at? I'm sorry. I just walked in. Who's next? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. Here, we'll play with Marley again a little bit. Oh, yeah, there's Marley. She's looking at, hey, what's on your computer? I can see it. No, I'm just kidding. It's what? Anyway, so it was just kind of fun. Like we can bounce back and forth and do these different things in multi-view. It's kind of fun. All right, thank you guys. If anybody wants to watch, I can put up the context aware video.
Piling up on you, which require either you to stop doing surgery and take your time away, or so push these emergent problems on the back burner until you're done with surgery, which can result in lost valuable time for these true emergencies. So that's just a simple highlight of some of the features that Context Aware is offering. And
forth and do these different things in multi-view. It's kind of fun.
Staff, hey, what you can hear me talking. Send that patient up to the preoperative area. We're going to be performing.
So there is a delay, obviously. That's what I wanted to show you too.
It doesn't take away anything from the surgery that I'm finishing up here on the carpal tunnel.
They didn't say it.
And actually, timing is everything, because I've just fully released this person's
See if we can get it back to where they actually were doing.
Whether or not there's. We're going to begin with a standard tunnel decompression surgery, which is the first on. Pretty good looking day today with the carpal tunnel decompression or device. And so, depending on your set to help surgeons out.
Sorry, we just did this live, so the video's not edited.
Okay, give it a few seconds to pick back up, and we'll go again.
I think Rishi was actually rapping.
Okay. All right. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. This is Dr. David Martineau. I'm here at the 2014 Watch Conference, Context Aware Surgery, and the illustrious student Dr. Rishi Mega here. We're here to show you guys the Context Surgery platform that is set to help surgeons out with things like patient safety, value in healthcare, efficiency processes, and so let's just get started. First things first that we noticed on the Context Surgery platform is that we can automatically get our surgical schedule pushed to our device. And so, depending on your date, time, location of where you're at, your glass knows what your schedule is. And so, popped up here in my field of view, I have a pretty good looking day today with the carpal tunnel decompression to start, followed by just the radius fractures and elbow arthroscopy. And so I know, and my glass knows automatically when I'm near my surgery center or my OR that I'm going to want to know what cases I'm doing and when, and of course brief information like who I'm doing surgery on, and that just automatically gets pushed to your glass. It's also done under a HIPAA compliant platform, so there's no worries in there. So we're in the OR today with our cadaver to simulate a carpal tunnel decompression surgery, which is the first on our schedule. So we start with a timeout and automatically gets pushed. Our card, this is John Doe, date of birth March 13th, 1956, and we're here to do a carpal tunnel decompression surgery with myself, Dr. Martineau. Medication this patient has received in the perioperative area include Versed and Ansef, and his current allergies are latex and bee stings. And at this stage, this is a checklist that gets followed. There's no scrub circulating nurse to confirm the timeout, but so long as there's a verbal feedback from a circulating room nurse saying this is the information that they agree upon, everything gets checked, and we're able to begin. So we're going to begin with a standard open carpal tunnel approach first, and basically follow the thenar creases in line with the radial border of the fourth ray to come through the palmar fat pad down to with the palmar fascia, which is our first structures that we come across here, and coming through the palmar pipette and palmar fascia down to the level of the transverse carpal ligament. And now the glass just pushed me a notification. One of the things that glass is nice to get our unit synced with is the anesthesia vital sign monitoring equipment. And so this notification just lets me know that because this is a cadaver, we don't have a vital sign monitor hooked up to the cadaver, or else you'd get error messages coming across that there's no pulse ox, etc. So vital sign monitors have not been pushed to this for this case, but that's by design. This just highlights that it is in fact checking on whether or not there's a vital sign monitor connected. So we're continuing through the transverse carpal ligament, and of course, just as it would always happen, we get a text alert. So always when you first start your surgical case, that's when some emergency comes through, and either you're getting paged and having a nurse trying to answer your phone, or you're stopping your surgery and trying to answer the phone yourself, taking your time away from the patient that's on the table in front of you. Here, we have a notification card pushed to the Google Glass automatically.
I'm gonna pause that for a second. They texted me and they're downstairs and they wanna see if you guys could watch a little bit. They're live. Let me see if I can get the link up here. Well, that's me. Well, I guess we can all steal David's email. All right, let's see. They are supposed to be up and live. This is actually they're demoing the.
The last thing is you guys could be like totally cracking up and grinning and
So this is the Designs for Vision product that allows focusing of the glass. Is John around? He might have stepped out. That's what they're demoing right now. Is the Designs for Vision device. I apologize. So it looks like that was it. We missed it. Sorry. We can check in and see what they're doing. Looks like they're twiddling their thumbs. And Rishi's playing. All right, we'll stop playing around. I appreciate you guys allowing us for the interruption, but I just wanted to kind of show you that. We were trying to do it live and let them show you something, a little bit of the tech, since we haven't had the tech work too well. We're reading Marley's email now. All right, Marley, who's got the comm? I apologize. Who's up? I wasn't here, so I didn't. And you guys have been using this other computer? You've been using the other computer? Oh, are you using this other computer to do it? Jordan's going to be remote, I believe. Joe, do you have Jordan on? Do you have Jordan Schlane on? Or is he doing it? Okay.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for giving me some time and attention today. My name is Guy Mascaro. I am with a company called Co Solutions. We're local here in Indianapolis. We have been a scientific and education communication company for the last 14 years. We spend most of our time working with large device, biologic, and pharmaceutical manufacturers to go educate their customers within the healthcare world. Reason I lay that out there is part of what we've been asked to do is say, okay, what was the challenge? And then how and why you got involved and how did glass fit into it? So we had a large device company wanted to be able to go to a conference in Europe and really kind of change the way that, it was a live conference called Link, and they wanted to be able to change the way that the surgeries were being done and viewed. So we were talking about some platform work we're doing with them, and they said, is there any way to go integrate glass? Because we had an image up there where we were connecting wearables to our platform. And we said, sure. So we had about 6 weeks to go figure something out. So we chose glass, and we headed over to this conference. We went over about 5 weeks before the conference started. We went to the hospital. We saw the hospital. Nice folks, but it was like a Soviet-era hospital, okay? Dim lights, pigeons literally in the hallway. And when we got to the cath lab, which was very nice, the internet, their Wi-Fi connection was only 34 kilobytes. 34, yeah, you can mouth that. So yes, 34 kilobytes, right? So we had to figure out how we were going to stream via the internet from this beautiful cath lab with high-end equipment to a couple of different places. So we went back home, went to a whiteboard, started working through crunching algorithms and all kinds of stuff. And I got a great crew who pulled together a beautiful solution that we said, okay, let's go back now and employ. Worked great here. Had no problem. Worked great in the hotel. We had 30 up, 30 down. So the question was, when we got to the hospital, what would it be? So we had to work out a deal with a satellite company to give us at least 1 megabyte of upspeed. And so everything you're going to see in the quality of the streaming went across just 1 megabyte. So they made a big deal of it, obviously. It was in the Louvre. So the advertisements were fast and furious. And that's actually Professor Murray. I'll introduce him in a moment, wearing the glass. And it was the first time, apparently, in Europe that anything like this had been done. And there was tons of tweeting that was going around before, during, and after. It was a scenario where we had BYOD, because with our solution, what we were able to do is stream out to the conference itself. We streamed and had a gated platform for individuals to be able to come in via their PCs, their iPhones, or any other mobile device they might have. And that was promoted during the conference. They also created an app that went on their conference site to direct them straight to our streaming platform. All password protected, all gated. This is a picture of Professor Murray and Professor Spiel. Professor Murray, and I don't expect any of you to know who he is the grandfather of interventional neuroradiology. He basically invented the science. So we went to go meet with him. He's a wonderful man. And of course, when you asked him, had he tried Google Glass before, the answer was always yes. But you could tell within 2.2 seconds of him putting it on, he'd never worn them before, which is going to be a challenge if these two individuals were going to be wearing them during surgery to get them comfortable and used to it. So we allowed them to wear the glass for a couple of days. And to be very frank, when we first got there, for our second trip, after we went home and figured out some things, there were some concerns, and they wanted to know, why couldn't we just use a GoPro camera, right? So we pulled out our solution. We shared it with them. And as soon as they saw what the streaming looked like and what we were capable of doing, then all of a sudden we started plugging into bigger monitors. We started pulling up images. We started broadcasting images right there in their small confines to prove to them that it was what it could be. So we were at a hospital called Bijon. It's in the northern suburbs of Paris. We streamed from there to the Louvre. And then from there, really, we allowed because the conference was global. There were folks streaming in from Beijing, from Helsinki, from several places. And we allowed them and then our customer to be able to tap into this. So, and just so you understand, there was also a full satellite company there, as in all the other locations. And this is where we actually were able to get our Wi-Fi. And there's some conversation because they want to be a partner with us as we go develop things for Europe. We're going to have to actually get them a dedicated line because 34 kilobytes is not going to cut what we need from them. So to give you an idea, this is Professor Murray actually wearing the glass during one of the procedures. So this is an image. So now there's a large medical conference. There's a big stage. All the expert panels are sitting there. And as you can see over here, Beijing, Geneva, Helsinki, Montpellier, Paris. So imagine a large stage like this. Depending on what was highlighted, that is the stream from one of the cameras that was in the operating room, that was satellite. And there's Professor Spiel, and then what was up on the devices being shown in the center. You can see how grainy that was. That was us streaming from glass. And I'm going to show you an up-close picture to see how well it went. This is what the site looked like that people came into and logged into. This is what they saw from a PC. And this is what they saw on their iPad or their mobile device. There's a little bit of a border, but you can see the quality. And the important part of this, I'm going to step in front of this, is when you deal with interventional radiology, something like an aneurysm is about the size of a Coke bottle cap. And so the ability to actually look at this, engage with it, make sense of it, share information back and forth, size matters, clarity matters, proximity matters. And so I'll give you a brief snippet.
Julien Ouiza, montez un tout petit peu le son, s'il vous plaît, là-bas.
For 1 second, I'm not sure why that's not showing. How do I get? Where's the gentleman in the back? How do I, hey, Paul? How do I get this video to play up here? Please. And if I have to get out of this to go over to another slide, to just pull up the video straight, I will.
Where's your video at?
Well, it's hidden behind this in show
hit-
mode. Do you want me to get out of that and go to my folder?
You may have to.
Okay, not a problem.
On the right, last picture on your right, and the middle. What is the difference? Julien Ouiza, montez un tout petit peu le son, s'il vous plaît, là-bas.
Go back to the left a little bit.
Back
to the left.
I think, okay. You know, the dissection.
But just to give you an idea, this was, again, coming out of the hospital.
And then later on,
one meg up. This is what we were able to stream in the quality we were able to stream. And as I sat there at the conference, and I had my iPad, my iPhone, and I was fighting with everybody else for Wi-Fi space, because as soon as they mentioned this, you could see initial streaming to drop. And then it picked back up. But this allowed us to show to them that this was something of value. You heard from the professors as they were presenting, you heard the tweeting, you heard the comments, that POV, as we've all been talking about, that point of view, really made the difference. And you could see, as Paul said, in the mind's eye of what Dr. Spiel or Dr. Murray were doing. So thank you very much. Come on. Is there a reason it's not responding? Is there a reason it's not coming back up? All right, but it's not responding to moving forward. It actually ends, and it shouldn't end. Well, long and short of it, so you know, things went exceedingly well. So where we are with this client, we actually came home and we started working on well, first of all, I know there's been discussion around HIPAA requirements, FDA requirements. We worked with the conference company in Europe to make sure we met all European EMA guidelines Other than some of the stuff that I have here that was truncated, everything else has been destroyed. The other part of it is when we came back, we really said, okay, there's great medical value to this. How do we as educators go in and educate? So we started a company and we began to build a platform, fully vetted proctoring platform called HCU. There's a few other things that will go into it, but for us, what we want to be able to do, and we're sometime in the next couple of weeks going to live here in the U.S. And again, I listened to the conversation that the attorney, Terry had, and the important part here is because we're working with a couple of different institutions to figure out what do you want proctors to do. From the proctor's view, what do you want to see? How do you want to integrate that into how you're communicating to the individual? As we know with glass, there's no codex in there, so you can't go back and forth. So how do you now go take a solution and that's allow that two-way communication? We've seen a couple of different ways from some companies here that they're doing well. For us, we're looking at a much bigger, broader platform to a lot of other things, but first and foremost, allow a two-way dialogue and communication between. And with that, for scheduling and some other features that'll be. Hope to on conversation with the FDA, and we're going through the whole process of being able to tie into medical device. The reality of it is, anytime you stream something from a device in there, you are considered an accessory to that device. And you actually have to go through, not a full 510K, but you have to go through a device exemption. Quality tests that have to go into it. In addition to all the things that can go into lock out the patient information, but at the same time, the ability to ensure that the clinical proctoring experience or other healthcare providers can be given direction. That's actually, there's a lot more I can go to, but I was asked just to present that case. Professor Murray, who is head of that society, actually now wants to stream using every location next year. Walking into and walking highways coming each other and they cross a single lane. Oh, it was short and sweet. Do you have any questions? Anything I can answer?
This is amazing. I just want to make sure I understand it. So you've got a 1 megabit per second uplink to a satellite, and you're getting, what, 720p at 60 frames a second? That's remarkable.
And all kudos go to my team. So yeah, they did a wonderful job. And I'll tell you a funny little secret. Our second trip, our second day there, I just came back from the park, and had the PC that we worked on. And it's the first time I ever had to deal with the French police. They were very polite. They had an auto translator because they could read everything. But we literally had 4 days to recode, redo everything. And I will tell you, they stayed up. I think they drank it. Stayed up, and they had the glass. Luckily, the glass was in a safe place. But the ability to go stream and the ability where we spent our interest. Glass, which has a glorified camera. What can we do? How do we do it? And what can we do? Because interestingly, 3 weeks before we were going over for the first time, updates on the glass, as we know, and they work here. So, and that's when I show people that image that you're responding to, I get the same response. What our solution? Still working, and it's design provision, others. we're still working at ways to actually bring closer the image. Yeah, no, the wearable feeds into the platform. Platform is a hotspot that the
Live stream in real time.
we had a 2 to 4 second delay. So there is delay, and I can't. When we first started, they were 30, 40, 60 seconds in their delay, and we were able to get it down for this.
But that's doable.
That is doable, and the thing is, we want to make it reproducible. So we have several institutions here in the U.S. that are willing to work with us to go test. And one of the things that we need to understand from hospital to hospital, what are the commonalities? So whatever the final solution is would allow it not to necessarily be plug and play, but it's a simple solution that comes, you're in, you can proctor, you can go in and schedule, you connect. It'll all be gated, it'll all be encrypted. I mean, it's similar to what other folks are using from, there are only so many companies that actually have encrypted streaming and storage platforms that are large that we all potentially use. Yes. We'll refer to it as a hotspot, but yes. It was a connectivity with what we were able to program the glass to do and then what the solution did. But the solution and the glass were tethered via Wi-Fi locally.
If I understand correctly.
Sure.
See something like
Yes.
Could I just
with our platform, you'd actually go through the platform. It would ping them on their smartphone or their device. They would accept. You'd each get your code. The glass for the platform would only be connected to that platform, and it would activate it. And then they're looking at you. They're seeing what you're seeing. You're hearing them through the solution. They're hearing you through your jawbone. And the two of you are having a conversation. Well, we're storing right now, right? Because there's a desire to store from an educational standpoint. And there's even a question. We had a long conversation with some folks yesterday at Major Medical, or the other day, how does it fit into the medical record? How do you go into EHR? Could you not, in fact, go take it and archive it from that perspective? And of course, from a litigious standpoint, there's all kinds of reasons to and not to potentially. So. Yes. Yes, sir.
The streaming received or recognized a value.
What they felt, and as you'll find with any glass, and I think others who work in this area will tell you, is we got to see exactly what they were looking at. So the other day I was actually wearing SMI glasses, Siemens glasses, which actually have the eye tracker on them. I wasn't as impressed with the graininess of the video recording, but it's that whole idea of I'm looking at your field of view. I'm looking at what you're looking at, just like what Paul was saying with the intubation, where I could actually see what you were doing. And from a proctoring standpoint, if I can see, just like the colleague from Sweden, right? If I could have seen what he was looking at or she was looking at versus my own mental picture of what I think you're saying, because being on this side of the table is very different than standing on your side in your field of view with the work that you're doing. So we went from non-believers, right? When we first walked in, I mean, they basically told us to pack up and go home. We're not doing this. To people who now were hugging and kissing. They do that in France. The folks who hired us to go do this for bringing this into their world. So, what we heard from the folks at the conference who were from U.S. and really global, because the other part of it is they could actually follow the procedures in full as they were flipping back and forth. They could choose which one they wanted to go see. That the ability to really understand what they were looking at and to feel like you were there with them heightened the learning experience. That's the best I can say. I mean, that was third party, what was told to us, and it's pretty evident as an educator that being able to actually see the ability to go do is much greater.
So have that in 3 weeks. They're doing or having but that video recording that streaming that they just fresh themselves. Oh yeah,
That is a great question, and that is the platform we're building has the capability to go do that. Question, though, then comes into everything from waivers and everything else that goes into it. The other part of the platform is you just flip it, and then now you've got a proctor looking at what the person who's doing it. So, yeah, there are many applications, and this is a wonderful space to be in and wonderful folks to deal with, as we've heard all the needs and desires from OR techs all the way through. I don't know, and I'll just be honest, I'm not sure how great to pull up information up on a small screen is. So our role in it is we're going to actually slave it to the bigger screen, right? And be able through voice activation for you to interact with that on the screen. That's where we're going with the technology we have. So someone told me, and it made perfect sense, when Henry Ford first came out with a car, they went 10 miles an hour. Today, over in the 500, we have cars that go 300 miles an hour. Everybody in this room, we're sitting here at a 10-mile-an-hour vehicle. Now, is it going to take 100 years to go from 10 to, no. But we're at an infancy. We're at an infancy where considerations are going to have to be made, acceptance is going to have to be made, and as a group, we're going to have to be very frank, work together to share information, share technology, and figure out how to do this well and do this together. As a group, our goal, and I got some partners back here, are to, for Indy, turn Indy into Silicon Valley, right? There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of great thought in the Midwest, and we want to bring some of that here. There's some great thought here from a people standpoint, and we want to be able to bring that outward to the rest of the world. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am. What's the price? Don't know yet. We're working through it. There'll be a leasing of the units, and then there'll be a subscription fee. It is, I can tell you, it's considerably less than what companies are paying now to go do. So we're fully. That's a great question. I know where you're asking it from, but it's a win-win proposition dollar-wise. Okay. Any other questions? Was that helpful at all? Okay. Thank you very much.
So we're going to have to trade back to me. Well, while I'm kind of messing around getting set up here, I think Marley's and some others are traveling quite a bit, have to get heading out, and I just wanted to say we should all give her thanks for the wonderful effort she's put to kind of make this possible. It would have been, you know, you can see what happens when you have a trauma surgeon do the tech part of a show, let alone all the other parts, the web and stuff like that she helped me, you know, do and really did most of it. And so that's why the other part looks pretty nice, and I'm a bit chaotic. So this is my replacement computer that I got from Dave Martineau because I broke mine. So my developer were in the middle of trying to get that glass working last night, and I dropped my computer and broke it. And he said, well, wow, that couldn't be worse timing. I'm like, thanks, man. I really appreciate that support, you know.
We're going to say goodbye.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks for organizing.
Well, you did it all.
We'll stay.
Take care. Have a good flight back. Get some rest. Does anybody? Sorry, I kind of been in and out. Do we know where we're at in the schedule? Who's next? Dan? Are you next, Dan? Oh, okay. Well, I met Dan. He called me a little bit ago, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing with this ambulance thing?" And I said, "Well, I got some things going on. We played tennis back and forth for a little while and figured out we both had some of the same ideas. And it sounds like he's even got some great stuff. It's really an honor that he came down to present that. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say, and just say that thanks for coming down, and I appreciate it. How do you want to get tied in here? Looks like you got a lot of good stuff. So the problem is, you're going to use the Mac, so just take that out and do that. There you go. Perfect. Great. And this pulled out too. That may be easiest. I can kind of push this.
If you don't mind, we can just set it.
Yeah, okay.
What do you need? So for my extra cables, do I need
Okay. Yeah, either one doesn't work.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll just do this.
Do you have audio you need to come through?
I know I'm good without
Okay.
audio, yeah.
Then you choose that right there. There you go. Awesome.
Great. Hello, everybody. Everybody looks awake, post sort of quick break and everything, and winding to the end, but I'm excited to have the chance to speak to all of you. As Paul was saying, I think Paul may have walked out, but I just wanted to thank Paul for inviting me. It was great after just a few phone conversations and really exchanging some ideas. He saw some, I think, good value in what we were doing and some overlap between some of the stuff we were doing, some synergies, so I'm excited to be here. So I'm also excited to be starting my own company with a small team. The last, I have to say, almost 15 years, I've been in medical devices, diagnostics, mostly development. So we developed and launched for large and medium-sized companies, mostly one small company, a fair amount of diagnostic products, and really developed new markets for those products and brought them into a few of them into regular clinical use. So it's been a short time I've been focused on glass. So a good friend of mine had a pair of glass that I tried on over. Our family was with his family over Christmas holidays, and I tried it on ward for a day, and I had a lot of experience in surgery, anesthesia, etc. And I was really just very impressed. I was like, oh, I have to do this. This is going to be great. I applied for the Google Explorer program, and basically since probably end of January, I've been really, really focused on this. First, still working another job, and then very recently, completely focused in this area. So our motto is really medical information when and where you need it. And we're very focused on developing what it sounds like over the last few days. Some of you guys have developed already, and some see potential issues with and other things that need to be addressed, but really developing a secure HIPAA-compliant platform for glass. So I'm looking at Kyle now because I just heard him speak, and I think we have a lot of it looks like we're approaching a lot of things the same way, and I could even end my talk and say, Kyle, I agree. I think your thesis is right on. Our thesis for our company is a little bit different, but very, very similar, which is really to look at the low-hanging fruit, as he put it, of glass, and where we could really focus and focus in on developing this platform that could allow the exchange of medical information, really conducting telemedicine, and focus in areas where I'll call it almost hands-free. It's not quite hands-free because, as you guys will see, because of some of the things actually Paul was talking about yesterday, and background noise and other things, we think using the very simple glass interface and actually clicking and swiping are the way to go in some of these applications. But we focused at first into the pre-intra post-hospital telemedicine. So what I really mean by that is applications very geared to EMTs, visiting nurses, people out in the field who need to exchange information with providers, mostly in the emergency department, potentially EMS medical directors, and then direct to specialists in some cases, from the emergency department out to specialists, and then also looking at some of the same providers in the post-hospital area to really see different things. And really the big need overall seems to be, as we talk to people and really get familiar with things, is better triage while still being focused on the patient. So that almost hands-free type of working on the patient, doing things with them while exchanging information. And what do we think the result will be? This is what we think, and we're just going to be starting pilots with our prototype software over the next few months. And really, we're very much focused on two areas. One, can we improve outcomes and do it in a measurable way in these patients? And then we think the value proposition on the financial side is really around only providing the services that are absolutely necessary and trying to do it within the existing reimbursement framework and then moving on from there. So what do we think the problems are that we're really trying to solve? We'll just spend a minute or two on this. But when we look at the pre-hospital space, we're really focused on, with EMS, with emergency services, traumas, mostly those mass casualty events or massively injured patients that are coming to the hospital, myocardial infarctions and strokes. And the current practice with EMTs, I know there was a little bit of talk about it earlier, but in our mind, it's very protocol-driven, very well done by EMTs. They're communicating by two-way radio, sometimes now cell phones, smartphones, and limited data is shared. So we see a lot of EKG data being sent, but very little else at this point. We know some of the companies like Zoll and others are working on sending additional data and even have pilots doing that, but they're just starting off there. So what we see as the big unmet need in that space is really to avoid unnecessary service activations. The one that comes to mind that we think we can really quantify is cath lab activations, which are done increasingly from the field. And what we're seeing in the literature is roughly 35-36% of them are false activations. Some can never be eliminated because of aberrant EKGs and other things that are just going to do that. But we think with just pure visualization, meaning ED physicians and cardiologists getting their eyes on those patients, they can probably eliminate some of those activations and really activate the right patients from the field. Also, that idea of being prepared for what comes through the door, really understand. I look at some of the pictures Paul showed yesterday of those mass casualty events and what could be going on, really getting a look at the mechanism of injury. What we think there, and we have some advisors are looking at, is activations like 911 versus 912 activations. Could we actually decrease those by getting eyes on the mechanism of injury? And then last, really just helping guide and perform some of the complex therapies like advanced airway management. And so right now, what we're seeing is the result of this is really poor clinical outcomes in some of those more severe cases, and then really costs that are greater than reimbursement. Where that really happens, we think, is the one we can quantify the best on that side is really, there's roughly 108,000 false cath lab activations a year, costing roughly $800 million to the market. On the post-hospital side, I won't spend a lot of time on this because I think we've all talked about this in passing, and I think all of us know about the Affordable Health Care Act and the type of incentives it has around not re-admitting patients within 30 days of discharge, especially for those three classes of patients, post-MIs, congestive heart failure, and pneumonia, where there'll be no reimbursement for the hospitals. And if they're a few standard deviations away from the national average, there'll actually be some penalties for those patients. So what happens with them today after their discharge, we're seeing really great improvements in discharge planning, in early community health programs, and we're starting to see a trend towards community paramedicine in these areas where EMTs, home health care are really taking care of these patients and trying to coordinate the whole community. But when 911 is called in these situations, the patients still end up going to the hospital. So in those types of situations, we see a real unmet need that could be solved with our solution for ways to really reduce these avoidable readmissions and limit some of the ACA penalties. So what does that mean in terms of dollars? So what we saw is in 2013 there were 2 million avoidable readmits, where almost 17 billion was spent. So when you look at some of these Medicare numbers, 26 billion was spent on these readmits, and 17 billion really could have been avoided. And in 2013, CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, actually fined 2,225 hospitals, $227 million, because they were above the mean readmission rates for some of these conditions. So when we think about our third eye solution and what we're building, and again, we're really a prototype stage where now we're going out to customers. We're getting a lot of really good data and feedback on what we're doing, and we're just beginning some of our pilots. So it really is three categories of things we're trying to do, and this is how we've identified, kind of, as Kyle put it earlier, our low-hanging fruit. It's really reviewing information, sharing information between providers, and then documenting some of that information. And probably I'll call it the diciest area is really that documentation side, where we have to think through what do we truly need to or want to document, and should we be documenting anything, or should we be just focused on the first few? So someone asked me last night what are our biggest challenges of the company, and I think it's really defining what I call in startup world kind of a minimum viable product. And you guys are probably all in the software areas dealing with that same kind of thing, but it's really what is the one set of product and features that's going to give us the most feedback from the market and allow us to really commercialize the product? And that's what we're sort of thinking about in these three categories. So I'm going to try to put on my glass and actually show you guys some of the application live right now and then get on our website. So if we end up with some of the Wi-Fi issues or other things, I may just go to PowerPoint slides, but bear with me for 1 second. Maybe I could actually try a little bit of technical help to see. I can't seem to see what I have on my screen up here. Yeah, so I can't see what I have on my screen up here. Is there something I need to? Did I just go to the other opposite screen or something?
On this one here?
Yeah, did I?
Do you need to move it over there?
Oh, yeah, maybe I just did that. Did I just go on screen over?
I don't. That's a good one. Looks like you flopped it.
So I can just show what's in there. Yep, yeah. Oh, okay.
This. What's this do here?
Oh, that magnifies it, yeah. So maybe if you hit that one.
Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Oh, that's a good one. There we go. Let's do this real quick. Sorry, I'm going to download.
Oh, no, that's okay.
You should just have it mirror your image. No, there you go. Now they'll be able to see it because it's right there.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, great. I always figure it's better to share something than do that, but you never know what issues you'll run into. So I think everyone can probably see what's in the little box. That's what's on my glass screen right now. So as I walk through, you'll see one of the first things that we want people to be able to do, and again, we're talking about those 3 different use cases potentially, and we're testing it out, is really select which provider they want to send information to. So after that, they can continue to send information. So just after selecting, I selected hospital A. I'll just go back for a second, and these would be the ability to kind of preset which hospital. So now that I've selected a specific hospital from a menu that exists, I can just quickly scroll through and do some of the things I was talking about with review. So really, someone can access protocols, access training materials depending on the situation they're in. I'll just give an example of a protocol, and that there'd be a whole list of different protocols to go through. And this is just an example of an ACS protocol. So going back to the menu, that's review, and then there's a way to share a lot of information. So one is live stream, and this is the streaming video capability. So really just be able to share what I'm seeing. And I'm going to talk in a second about where I'm sending it all to. I'm really sending it over to a secure website, could be hosted on the hospital's intranet if they chose to do that. We're going through some of the same process of sending data just through our secure cloud servers that we're working on, encrypting, et cetera, and going through all the HIPAA issues as we kind of work through the pilot, the various pilots. So we can share information by live streaming and having that video chat, making a phone call, transmitting some of the things. And we focused a little bit on some of the data that they'd have in the ambulance, but this could be other data that they'd want to look at. So transmit EKG, transmitting vital signs, taking a picture and being able to transmit it, and the same with being able to record a short video. And the last part that we're looking at and testing out now is really being able to create documents. So the example we're using is an EPCR report that they would have in an ambulance. But the idea here would be to just click Create Report. This is a barcode scanner. I would scan a QR code, and then I would be able to get information and populate that for a specific patient. And then same if a patient was on the way to the hospital, we could go ahead and go through again the review menus quickly, the menus on submitting or transmitting information, and then also starting a patient registration. And that's really the glass side of the application. And then if we take a look, and I'll see if I have a good website link. The information that I took from there is really all sent over to a secure web portal. So I'll go ahead and log into it. It's our Third Eye web portal. And once we've logged in, what we see is a dashboard of all the different glass users that are out there. So as I kind of go down the side, it's the connection symbol is, I don't know if I have a pointer, there's really whether they're connected or not. If various users could be with different EMS services, potentially different home health services, or within the hospital. Their transport status, if they're in the hospital, on their way to the hospital, home, or on their way home. Patient name, which could be disabled or not displayed or not sent through the interface, if that's the choice of the providers. A very simple segment on patient condition, and just a stoplight to give an overall indication if someone was looking at this, and then some remarks that were said through voice commands by the user. So really the way to think about it is an EMT, visiting nurse, ED physicians wearing the glasses, and now this is the other provider who's looking at that information. And they would, if they wanted a specific request, like the live stream request to do streaming video, a secure text message is sent to that provider's phone. If they're on a tablet right now or their PC, they can log right in. Or if they have it to their smartphone, we're just not optimized for viewing on that quite yet, but they can go to the other area and view it. And then when they select a specific patient, what they get is that full profile as we go through. So all of the information, so any pictures that were submitted through glass, location or hospital ETA, protocols that the EMT or nurse looked at, any videos they uploaded to show something short for the patient, and then an example of an EKG they could upload, or vital signs, pictures from the monitor, or eventually data from the Bluetooth. And this is where the other provider would see the live stream or what's going on through the Google Glass with the provider out in the field wearing it. And again, so what we're really focused on with this solution is going through these steps of really reviewing, sharing, and then documenting information. So let me take a step back for a second, and that's really our solution. We're in prototype phases with it right now. So who are we? So I talked about myself a little bit. We have this is really our core team. Bob is our president and other co-founder, and he's really working on our design control system. What we're going to do, we do think we're going to have to be. We're not going to have any Class 2 type of applications with the FDA, but that we will be in that Class 1 exemption status with what we're going to do. So MDDS Class 1, which means we'll have to have a quality system, and Bob is really designing that and understanding everything we need to do to document that system. He has a lot of good product development experience. Jameson, I think many of you some of you I know. He's our chief medical officer. He's out in San Francisco. And I worked with him closely when I was at Hemanetics, and he was partnering with us as a company for a number of years. And he's done some really good work in the telemedicine space, teledermatology, and a few other areas, and is dedicating a fair amount of his time to our venture. And then Luke, if you said to your glass, "Okay, weather," or you've looked at NPR, you probably know the NPR app. You know Luke. Luke has done a lot of good Google Glass development on the early side. He was also Google Glass Explorer and has really been working closely on our application. And then Barb, who's out in the audience also, is our marketing lead, and we've worked together for a number of years, launching a number of products and getting them into regular clinical practice. So we have a group of advisors who are helping us with some of our early thinking and pilots. And so I didn't actually notice till now that there's 3 marks in a row, so it's easy to remember at these advisory board meetings, although they all talk over each other when you say their names. But Dr. Sishan is an emergency medicine leader, and he's in Chicago, and he's also an EMS medical director. Dr. Walsh is relatively local to here in South Bend, and he's worked with him for years on a number of projects, and the two of them are really leading up the emergency medicine side of what we're doing. Mark Arith from the Mayo Clinic, recently just retired from there to start a company, is a real expert on medical education, I think how to present a lot of information, and has given us a lot of advice from that perspective. Laurel Olmert is a trauma surgeon and really helping us look at some of these trauma activations and how we would study those different areas. And then last person is Chris. He's a CEO of an ambulance company in Chicago that has 90 ambulances, and they're going to be testing out some of our products over time in conjunction with some different hospitals. So what's next? We're at the phase where we have a good prototype. We think we're going to start to collect some of the data on the different use cases. I kind of mentioned them all as I went through, and really see which have clinical and economic value. And we're going to try to do small studies of that 50 to 100 patient variety compared to what the hospitals were doing before, and see if we can prove out some true, in addition to clinical value, economic value. And we see a commercial product, something that could really truly be purchased in early 2015. I'm very optimistic, mid-2015, but sometime next year. And then I know the question on all of your minds is, how can I help? Okay, it's probably more like, how can we help our patients? And so, all we'd really ask as you guys think about things, and I'm looking forward to questions in a minute, is just really provide us your thoughts and feedback. We're really iterating, developing something we think has a lot of potential, as many of you are, and as many of you have talked about great products and great ideas and clinical applications. We'd just love to hear your feedback. So with that, I will actually open it up to if there's any questions or comments or thoughts.
Yep. Can you talk more about FDA clearance and what category does your product come into and how you're going about it?
Yeah, so we think we're being a little conservative on it. We got a regulatory assessment. There may be ways to take our application to market without FDA clearance, but we think where we think we'll end up, because of some of the data we want to display and everything, is as a Class 1 device. MDDS Class 1 with an exemption, so we won't have to submit to the FDA, but we'll have to keep quality records and have a quality system. Oh, we had a regulatory person who's an expert in the question. I don't know if everybody could hear the question. Is why Class 1? We had a regulatory expert who took a look at what we're doing, and I think her big conclusion was because we're because if we're displaying clinical data on a different system where clinical decisions could be made, even though we're not modifying any of the clinical data, because we're doing that in addition to some of the visualization of the patient, that we would probably be a Class 1 device.
Just thought about to further your.
We have, yeah. We're actually working on an SBIR application right now. We think that's a good source. And we also think probably the Department of Defense is also a really good source for us to get some money to do. We see some various applications. There's actually some SBIRs that are, I don't know if a lot of you guys have seen these. If not, I can forward them around. There's a lot of SBIRs that are real specific to this area that could be useful for all of us to apply to. Good. Well, great. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time.
Sweet. Sorry about the tech.
Oh, no problem.
It's one of those things. I'm beyond. Like, I probably look like I've been beat like a stick like 10 times after all this tech stuff over the last day or something. Wonderful stuff. I appreciate you coming down.
Great.
Is this yours? Or?
Oh, yeah, that is mine. Yep, great. Thanks.
Thanks for spending your time and
Thanks
everything.
so much. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, keep on moving. We're gonna get there. Good thing Martino's not back. I'm showing everybody his email. Alrighty, we're going to have up next is the illustrious and good friend of mine, Heather Evans. She'll be up here shortly. See if we can get Heather to join us. Heather, she's been doing a lot of work in glass out on the east or west coast. She was recently in the American College of Surgeons bulletin with Raphael Grossman, and so it's kind of neat that she got the American College of Surgeons to recognize us for doing this kind of stuff. So let's see if we can get her to join us. All right. Hello, Heather.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure. We just introduced you as the illustrious American College of Surgeons winner for your article. I'm going to go ahead and let you face the crowd. Can you hear okay?
I can hear great. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yeah, we'll kind of turn it up a little bit. I was just waiting. Well, thanks for joining us all the way from the West Coast after a terrible trauma week. I've been there. So I'm sure that you're willing to get this over with, so I'll let you go and get some sleep. All right?
Well, thanks so much, Paul. I really appreciate the invitation to get to talk to everybody. And my only regret in the Watch organization so far is that I haven't been able to be more involved just because of all of my clinical commitments in the last couple of months. But I'm hoping to be able to keep finding a place for the organization because I really do think that this is going to be an exciting group of people to work with over the next coming years. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes just sort of introducing myself and letting you know why I'm talking to you. I know maybe some of you have seen my face in Google Glass articles before, but maybe not. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about why I'm a part of this. I actually am a trauma surgeon at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, Washington. And in
Uh-oh.
And I happened to be one of the first explorers that was invited to join the program. And I found Raphael Grossman online, and we became very good friends virtually, and have been really engaged in using glass as much as I can and trying to figure out how this very exciting opportunity can be used in my clinical work, but also as someone who is very interested in technology, as a researcher, a clinical researcher, how I can use that in the work that I do as well. And this has led me to meet folks like Paul on Google+, and I actually have met a number of the folks who are attending the conference, including Kyle Samani at conferences and things. And this is all been a part of being an explorer early on in the program. And today, what I'm going to talk to you about is why I think we still have quite a bit of work to do. And I'm very excited by the other speakers that have given a window into what the future is. The perspective that I'd like to give today is a little bit of reality check as to where we are in terms of being able to implement in our hospitals now. So this is the view from the clinician side, who's very eager to implement Google Glass and other technology in our work, but facing the reality of our current IT systems and our administrations, and also some concern from the public and our patients as to what we're really meaning to do with this new tool. So I have a couple of slides, and I'm going to click screen share here, and I hope that that will work and everyone is able to see what I'm conveying. And
oh, good, it worked. It was getting work.
How am I doing?
It worked. It worked fine, Heather. I was a little worried there, but it's fine.
Okay, great. So I don't mean to be a naysayer. I just want to be a bit realistic in terms of what the current situation is. And I know that Kyle and Dan, the speakers that have been talking about HIPAA compliance, have really tried to address this in their current solutions. But I think that we still have a long way to go in terms of the full kind of implementation that we all want to see in the future. And perhaps I'm a little late to the conference to be able to bring up some of these topics that I know have already been discussed, but I would just say that I think that there's more than just HIPAA compliance that is really at stake here. I would venture to say that safety is an issue that has been raised by a number of different organizations as well as individuals in the press in particular. And I don't think it's a small issue, actually. There is a sense of using wearable technology can be more than just a security problem, but it can be a safety problem if there's distraction or a degree of unfamiliar use of the device and how it may interfere with our existing processes or our existing skill set. I will talk a little bit about security and liability. I think there's a lot to be discussed about privacy and etiquette, particularly in medical arenas. I know that many of you are probably aware of the lawsuit that was just announced that was settled with Johns Hopkins in the past week, where there was a gynecologist that was surreptitiously filming pelvic examinations using a pen camera. Obviously, glass is a lot more obvious to wear than a pen camera, but there are a lot of wearables that are very inobtrusive and can be disguised. And so I think that we have a lot to discuss about what the appropriate use of such wearables is in a medical environment in particular. And lastly, it's still a beta product, and I think that there are a lot of challenges with that. Obviously, as technicians and people that are interested in developing technology, we're used to that kind of a problem, but our patients are not. And our colleagues that are expecting everything to work perfectly the first time, particularly in high-risk situations, are not. And I think that there are things that we're going to have to address in order to be able to implement these on a wide scale. So I think this idea of distraction is not just a distraction in terms of I'm using a new tool while I'm doing an existing process or an existing operation that I know how to do. It's also a conception of being fascinated with a tool, but rather not with the problem at hand. So it's a very enjoyable device to work with. I think in some sense it's a solution looking for a problem. And as we explore these potential problems to solve, we need to keep in mind that we're still taking care of patients, and it's important for us to not lose sight of what it is that we're trying to solve, not just trying to use a new tool, as with any new technology. I did refer to this already, that there is a loss of situational awareness when you're wearing any sort of device that gives you new feedback. Obviously, there's a learning curve with this device and any other. I think there is a possibility to be able to integrate this very quickly over time, but a new user is definitely much more distractible than an experienced user. And even an experienced user, I think, can be led down perhaps the incorrect decision-making path if they're directed away, if their attention to perhaps the operative field is directed away because of a distracting piece of information. So it's just something that we're going to have to learn how to integrate into our work. There was a paper that I can't call your attention to directly. I'll try and look up the reference and leave it on our website. But there is a paper that has talked about navigation using real-time imaging in the operating room, and that it actually was associated with worse navigation because the user was directed away from the cues that they were given from the operation itself and redirected based on the imaging study. So I think that it's something that we certainly need to keep in mind, that we want to be able to keep our wits about us and focus clearly on the decisions that need to be made at hand, and use this to integrate further data, but rather not be distracted and use it as the only source of data. And then lastly, I think we've all struggled with this as clinicians, and with the implementation of EHRs in particular, is this idea of alert fatigue. And I know as an intensivist working in the ICU, you need only spend a week in the ICU and to understand how many alarms there are, even in an hour, and how distracting they are initially. But over time, as a provider, I've learned how to tune them all out. Even that alarm that signifies that the person has been disconnected from the ventilator is something that can go into the back of your mind and not really invite you to intervene if you're concentrating on something else. So I think this idea of alert fatigue certainly comes into play when you're using glass. If you set your glass at too low a threshold for alerts, certainly are going to become less sensitive to those alerts that come through. And I'm sorry, I have one more bullet point. Right now, as it stands, it's very difficult to lock down your device. There certainly can be inappropriate input put through. You can choose inappropriate input, as did this character from CBS's The Good Wife. I don't know if anybody saw this episode, but this was a really great episode where this very nefarious character who plays a notorious perpetrator of sexual activity on the show was having a discussion with his attorney wearing a Google Glass type wearable device, and was talking about how he could see her naked while he was talking to her. So there certainly is a way that we can have inappropriate input into these devices in a place of business. And obviously, professionals would choose not to do such a thing, but with all the stories in the news, it's certainly something that the public could be aware of and maybe even make comments of when you're taking care of them and they're your patients. So security is the next major issue. There was a fantastic article in the Atlantic this week in which one of the folks from, I believe, one of the hospitals in Boston, she's an information our innovations officer there, said that, it's Google, which wants everything publicly available, and healthcare, which wants nothing publicly available. So we have this inherent conflict in using any wearable device, but particularly Google Glass, where in its raw state, all of the information is automatically filtered through Google servers, and a lot of the information that you collect, all that data, all those pictures and videos, are being stored on their servers. So there are a number of issues. The device itself is not secure. You can't put a password on it. You could easily have it swiped in any area in the hospital. As I mentioned, the data storage, and for that matter, the data transmission in its raw state. I'm not talking about when you're using one of the third-party solutions like Pristine has. All of these things are not secure and not encrypted. There are a number of solutions for these problems. Obviously, if we just put a password on it, that would improve it. That would require some modification to the device. We need to disable the auto backup and have a little bit more control over where the data actually goes, and encryption would be a solution for data transmission. I'm not going to get into any detail here, as I'm not a technologist. I'm not one of the developers working on any of these things, but I will say that all of these questions are raised whenever you talk about using wearables, particularly Google Glass, in a clinical environment. I've had these discussions over and over with our own administration. We've developed some policies at our institution to try and set up some standards for how not only this device, but other devices in the future should be evaluated and implemented. And we're looking to partner with Pristine in the next couple of months to do a pilot trial because it really is the only HIPAA-compliant solution out there at the moment that is widely available. And I'm looking forward to that kind of trial, but I know Kyle has already presented earlier today, or maybe even yesterday, I'm not sure. But there are some limitations to that solution as well. And so we're looking forward to working together with them and finding out if this is going to work for our institution. I think etiquette is really something that we need to talk more about, and is a difficult topic, particularly in healthcare, just because I think the public's image of physicians and nurses and other healthcare providers has changed pretty dramatically in the last quarter century, and the expectations that people have of privacy when they step over the threshold of the hospital or the clinic are very different than the expectations of privacy that they have in public. And that is even true for a younger generation that has very much a different conception of what privacy is than perhaps even those of us who are not really old, but have lived through this transition. And I think this idea of using a device that can intervene between you and the person that you're caring for is another challenge to us as practitioners to figure out how to incorporate this into a humanistic interaction. How do you ask questions of someone when there's a computer screen in the room? And I would say that once the two parties are used to wearing a wearable device, it actually is less obtrusive than having a monitor that is a shared monitor in the room, or a monitor that is only for the practitioner to use while the interview is going on. So I think that there is some potential for this to become much more commonplace and much more easy. But there is this idea that permission needs to be obtained, not only for legal or privacy reasons, but also for just common etiquette. I mean, I would like to know if you're going to record my conversation. Obviously, you need to obtain permission legally to have a conversation recorded in a medical context.
You hear me?
But I think it's also a sense of courtesy.
I can't see
to
myself.
understand
My screen's black.
Your words are important enough that I want to listen to them again. I want to be able to see our interaction when I go home, and I can review it and make sure that
and come back into it.
I understand what you told me to do,
Okay.
and vice versa. I want to be able to review those things as a practitioner to know that I've documented carefully what I did with you. But I think this idea of permission and the context in which wearables are used for recording or data collection is very important for us to consider.
Do you see my presentation?
Are we ready for full deployment? I think there are a number of boxes that need to be checked.
It's still recording.
Do we have patient acceptance? Well, maybe. I think all of the patients that I have asked whether or not I could use glass in the operating room to record their operation have been extremely enthusiastic about it. I haven't had anyone say no. But I haven't asked people if it was okay for me to record an interaction in the clinic. And I don't have a lot of experience with more sensitive recordings where perhaps identifiers would be very obvious. Most of the procedures that I have done have been started well after the drapes have been put up, and any sort of obvious identifiers would be absent.
I do too.
Will other providers accept the use of glass or other wearables in clinical environments? Actually, I've had a number of providers ask me, could you please not use that when I'm in the room? Because I don't want to be.
Do you want me to email you this file?
And by and large, these have been nurses,
no, it's
and
not
I've been very respectful of that. And in fact, I don't wear glass when I'm in the hospital, just walking around, because I do think that there's an expectation of privacy that people have, as I mentioned before, when they're in a hospital environment that they may not have in other public areas. There are a number of compliance issues. I'm not going to get into that any further today, but I think that each individual institution is going to have their own sort of perspective on how this information and how this data can be collected and transmitted and shared, and may have a different sensitivity threshold about these issues. Certainly other countries do not have the same HIPAA laws that we do, and there are a number of surgeons that I know, including I'm forgetting his last name, Brian, who has instituted the International Hernia Collaborative on, Brian Jacob, who's instituted the International Hernia Collaborative on Facebook. They've been able to live stream some really fantastic hernia operations just by the fact that the countries in which these operations are being conducted don't have the same kind of privacy laws that we do in the United States. And I think it's a wonderful benefit for medical education and sharing information between surgeon to surgeon. But it's not something that we're as freely able to do in the United States because of the laws that we have and the protections that we have for our patients. And then lastly, I think there are a number of hardware issues with the device itself. I didn't get into this today, but I found that I'm actually on my 4th unit now. I've had 2 with foil bubbling. I've had another that had overheating issues and would continuously restart. Obviously, the device is still in beta and has some problems, and the hardware is having a very hard time supporting the new operating system updates. And I think we're all hoping that that will continue to evolve, and I think it certainly will. But I'm not sure we're ready for a wide deployment of the device as it stands, as it comes from Google right now. And this just underscores the need for all the wonderful work that the innovators who are watching right now and who are in the audience are doing. We need party apps. We need more development. We need more integration of this device in your terrific solutions. So that's really all I have to say. All the slides I have. I don't mean to be a naysayer. I really want to just be an agitator for conversation. I think that in order for us to be able to really see the full potential of tools like glass, we have to have these conversations and direct our attention to these issues instead of ignoring them. I'm not suggesting that the audience is participating in only development and not thinking about these problems. Certainly some of the things that are being developed have addressed these problems directly, but I think we just need to keep the conversation going and keep it out in the media so that people can understand when they come to the clinic or they come to the operating room that these are things that are being developed that are intended to improve care.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Heather. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Interestingly enough, at the American Hernia Society meeting this year, I actually streamed live with Brian Jacob from Methodist Hospital here in Indianapolis, and so we were able to do that through the Facebook site by getting special approval and very, very well consenting the patient. But we actually did that at the meeting this year during his talk, and so that was really interesting because it was one of the first times that anybody had ever done that using Facebook in the United States, at least in the United States, using Facebook and Glass at the same time. It caused a bit of controversy here at the university, as you might imagine. Ask for forgiveness later, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I know that the first time that I tried to live stream Glass was at a conference in New York. That's actually where I met Kyle Samani, and it was pretty controversial at our institution as well. And I was very happy to have the backing of our media people. They regarded it as a media event, and that was acceptable.
Exactly.
So,
That's what we had too. I mean, once we got them involved, we had quite a bit of blockage. But the reality of it is, it's really, in that sense, it was no different than streaming a media event. It was a confined space. There was no identification. Nobody knew we were going to do it. We were on, log in on either side, you know what I mean, all that stuff. And so we ended up being okay, but it did cause a little bit of a stir. Is there any questions for Heather specifically? Go ahead, Boss.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for joining remotely. And also thank you for liking my suggestion of moving the camera to the center of Google Glass. I thought you called it an elegant solution. Thank you. So you mentioned alert fatigue. Do you think it's going to make a difference between audible alerts and visual alerts? As I'm looking at Glass from my perspective, and I start thinking about some medical device integration, instead of a device pinging at you, all the beeps and pings that are already there, maybe you can get environmental alerts like overheating or optimal temperature reached just appear as a big red dot or a big green dot in Glass. Do you think it would help, or kind of the same thing is going to happen and you're going to start tuning it out?
Oh, I think it's a fascinating question. I think the audio alerts are really a difficult thing. I've actually gone to complete vibratory alerts for my pager and my phone because I can't stand any more audio input. And I've really tried to turn down the sensitivity of all of the alerts that come through on Glass. I actually get a very minimal amount of alerts via Glass.
Hey,
and
guys,
this idea of a visual alert, I don't know. That's something to think about. I definitely would want to try that because I think that
Am I next?
the more private it is,
well,
the
you were
better.
supposed to be earlier, but
it's still
I guess we
stimulating
can take
to
you
the
to
wearer,
counter.
and I think that there would be certain
But
circumstances where
let's do this. I'm going
a visual alert might even
in
be
this
more
conference call for
distracting.
both of you. I need you guys to both to come
If
back
you were
into
actively
this, okay?
using Glass, for example.
Say it again. We're both
So
gonna
I don't
what?
know. I think it's something
Hang on quick.
to research. I would like to get back to your point about moving the camera because I want to get this out there. I think everyone should be asking for this.
I'm going to end the conference call that you're in now.
If we could decouple the camera from the display, I think it would tremendously improve the device.
Okay.
Because right now the display is so, or the camera is so dependent upon your head position, and as a